Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With. Out, Bruce Prichard. Well, not really. It's a remix of one of our more controversial episodes from season 1 of Something to Wrestle, the Montreal Screwjob. Boy, I remember when this one happened. I think Bruce Mitchell listened and then told Dave Meltzer, hey, whatever you do, don't listen to that new Bruce Prichard show about the screw job. Dave tweeted something like that. And man, all of a sudden, Something to Wrestle and the Wrestling Observer were on each other's radar. Of course, the original plan was to be talking about Survivor Series 1996 today. We will be talking about that next week. Bruce was unavailable to record this week, and that will make sense soon enough. Bruce likes to be a pretty private person, but he's always pretty open and honest with you guys here on the show. But it's his story to tell, not mine, so stay tuned, boys and girls. But let me just say, everybody's okay. Let's not have the rumor and innuendo say that Bruce is not okay. Everybody's all right. But this show is going to be more than all right today, because we're not just doing a replay. Yes, you're still going to hear the Montreal discussion from Bruce and I from 2016, but I'm so excited for you to hear brand new content. We've got a few minutes with Mike Kiota that was lifted off of our Monday mailbag show over at adfreeshows.com. We had one of our subscribers ask Mike Kiota about the screw job, and Kiota reveals something that I don't think anybody's ever heard before. But then, for the first time ever in long form, Gerald Brisco tells exactly what happened, what his involvement was in the screw job, when he knew. He addresses the rumor and innuendo that he went to Shawn's room to teach him how to protect himself. We talk about the fallout, his relationship with Pat, every angle in super granular detail, as Jeff Jarrett would say. I picked up the horn and talked to Briscoe for what I thought would be 15 minutes. It was nearly an hour and a half. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, what else is there to talk about Montreal? And listen, I understand. It feels as if this story has been dissected and told from 100 different angles and perspectives, but we've never really heard it from Briscoe. And considering what we know happened and what we saw that night as fans, Briscoe had a role. He was one of Vince's right-hand men, and when it came time for, well, the deed to be done, he tapped Briscoe. So you're going to hear his full story today for the very first time at the end of our remix, so you can hear the perspective from Bruce Prichard. You'll hear a quick little note that maybe you've never heard before from Kiota, and then you're going to hear the entire story directly from Jerry Briscoe. I want to mention Briscoe and Bradshaw have a brand new podcast called Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. You can follow them on Twitter at Briscoe Bradshaw. But my favorite thing to recommend is that you check them out on YouTube. And that's pretty easy to pin down. You want to look for stories on youtube.com. That's right. Just throw it in your machine right now. Storiesonyoutube.com, and you'll get the Briscoe and Bradshaw show. They've got guests every single week. Right now, if you go check out storiesonyoutube.com, you'll see an interview with Jerry Lawler. You'll see one with The Godfather. You'll see one with Kiota. You'll see one with Ron Simmons. You're going to hear an incredible story about Pat Patterson, on and on and on. It's all at storiesonyoutube.com. And man, I can't thank Briscoe and Bradshaw enough for the opportunity for Briscoe to come on our show here and just talk and just tell his story. And man, it was cathartic. There's a long stretch in there where I don't say a word. I mean, probably 20 minutes where you don't hear me even utter a single syllable. But Briscoe was on a roll, man. He was cleansing his soul and just telling everything there is to tell about Montreal. So it's a very special remix episode here on Something to Wrestle. You're going to hear the retro 2016 discussion about Montreal. We'll hear a quick little clip from Kiota, and then we'll wrap it up with Briscoe. You're going to love it. Stay tuned, boys and girls. Yes, it's more of the story we've all heard, but you've heard it from the outside looking in, and you're going to hear it today, really for the first time, from the inside looking out. It's the Montreal Screwjob. Don't forget Gerald Brisco at the end. Without further ado, let's get to it. It's Something to Wrestle With remix about Montreal. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you are listening to Something to Wrestle With, the man who makes it all possible, Mr. Bruce Prichard. What's going on today, man?
Man, I am fired up and ready to go. We got a poll this week, man. We got a lot of feedback on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. We got
Nobody really cares what the hell I have to say about Monday Night Raw, TNA, or SmackDown.
So we're following the feedback, and we're scrapping that, and we're going to get right into the main event. What happened when? You heard Bruce reference it. We're actually suggesting that you get to program the show. How fun is that? That's a little revolutionary for you in the podcast land. Every week, we're going to throw up a poll on our official Twitter account. It's at Prichard Show. And you'll have an opportunity to kind of shape the show. What are we going to talk about that week? You get to decide. It doesn't get more fun than that. So throw us a follow on at Prichard Show. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. It really does help. And now let's get into it. What you picked this week. What happened when the Montreal Screwjob went down in November of 97? And Bruce, when we start to talk about this, you know, this has probably been covered to death, but not by a lot of folks who were there for the whole thing as it happened. There's been lots of speculation and pieces, but now we're going to get the perspective from you, from someone who was known Bret for a long time, booked Bret for a long time, and then was there in the aftermath. So I kind of want to go back to 1996 before we really get into Montreal, because I feel like that's where a lot of the groundwork was laid for this. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. But when we put up, we were going to talk about Montreal, I wanted to talk about the smoked meat and the hot dogs. And
well, it turns out that's not what everybody took to mean
I'm
there.
Confused.
So we could talk about Pat Patterson, I guess. He's from Montreal.
He is from Montreal. Montreal's most famous citizen, by God.
Well, instead, we're going to talk about Bret Hart.
Okay.
I think that's what everybody really wants to talk about. And I'm kind of like, we had some feedback on Twitter. What else can you say? But you do have some interesting perspective, because you were there for a lot of the contract stuff and a lot of storyline stuff and a lot of the aftermath, so to speak. And really, it is responsible for catapulting, in my opinion, the Attitude Era. And so before we cover a whole lot of Attitude Era stuff, why not go ahead and cover what really kicked it off, and that is Montreal. So let's go to 1996, post WrestleMania 12. When you guys went into WrestleMania 12, you knew the finish was going to be overtime. You knew it was going to be Shawn Michaels. You knew he was going to be the new flag bearer for the company. But Bret was still booked on, was it a European tour or a Middle Eastern tour that he still made dates on after that? But what was his obligation as far as your recollection goes?
Bret was with us. I mean, Bret was committed. There were big time plans for Bret after WrestleMania 12.
What were they? Do you recall?
Well, yeah, to work with Shawn and do a lot of the things that we did throughout the summer, and continue to build for the future and move on. But
that didn't happen in 96. Like, you know, he left for a while.
He left for a while. That was planned.
For Lonesome Dove, or just time off, or a combination?
It was time off. Bret had been running hard, and Bret had asked for some time off. And what better time? And frankly, you go back to work shoots and so on and so forth. There was, we followed Bret all the way out.
When he jumped in the car and the whole deal.
And he came through, and I'm standing there and go, hey, good match, brother, which I caught hell for. But, Bret did.
Why would you catch hell for that? Saying brother?
Yeah, events. Oh, god damn, pal.
But because the boys say brother, or because you were trying to get your shit in and say brother?
No, it wasn't. It just, I caught shit for everything. But it was one of those things where that was Bret's idea. Bret's whole thing was, let me leave, have everybody, if everybody backstage is talking, Bret was pissed off he had to drop the title, Bret was upset.
So Bret kind of wanted to work the boys a little.
Without a doubt, 100%.
Okay.
And that was Bret's idea.
Okay.
And the idea behind it was Bret was going away, going to take some time off, do some different things. So, in his absence, let the talent, which you're going to do anyway, they're going to gossip and feed upon themselves. So, give them something to talk about. And Bret was going off to do other things at the time and take some time off. He wasn't going to be talking to anyone that wasn't family. So, what better time to do it?
Am I making this up? I feel like, if memory serves, probably. He worked a match with Stone Cold Steve Austin at the time, just Steve Austin, I believe.
Who?
Bret Hart.
Okay.
In the summer of '96, I think it was in Kuwait. Would that have been? I know you guys did a video release of a tour over there, but it seems like that was kind of a one-off.
The tour may, you know what? And again, I don't know specifically. I don't remember, but I believe it was a situation where the Kuwaiti tour had been booked in advance, and Bret was one of the talent that had been promised on that tour. So that's probably why, if he wasn't working domestically and wasn't a part of things, why Bret was a part of that. So
carry me through this. I'm curious about the business aspect of that. When you're saying that's a talent that was promised, I'm of the impression that a lot of the overseas shows are often sold shows. Could you kind of explain what that means to some of our listeners?
Well, some were and some weren't. And there was a period in the business where we would go overseas and we would go different places where they would purchase the shows. They would say, hey, I want to do 6 shows, X amount per night. And then they pay expenses. And
a promoter is who you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
So we would pre-sell the shows. So if and
they would cover travel, hotel,
they covered everything.
Okay.
They covered everything. So we didn't have to worry about if we sold 1,000 tickets or if we sold 10,000 tickets.
Do you remember one in particular, one of these sold shows that was just an absolute disaster? Like, not for you guys, because you guys got your money, but I mean in terms of the promoter taking a bath.
No, not really. I remember that there were times in some of the Middle Eastern countries where they would bring us in and they would want to have multiple shows in the same arena, multiple nights back to back. And the deal was it was for a very select group of people.
Okay.
So you're performing in a building that holds maybe 10,000 people, and there's only 1,000 people there. Now, of course, there are probably those in the business that are saying they only drew 1,000 people in Hochberg, Kammerschnabitz. But
they were prepared for that.
Yeah. We knew it going in, and we had been paid on, if we had drawn 10,000 people. It was a sold show, and the people that were putting the show on were putting it on for a select...
For those 1,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Group of people. But to the outsider that doesn't understand that or know that, they're like, oh, God, they went in there and only drew so many people.
The reason I find this interesting is he does that tour and has to work with Steve Austin, and then he comes back and is immediately programmed with Steve Austin, which I would assume, and I'm probably wrong, and I want you to myth bust it now for us, Bret asked for Austin?
Probably.
Okay.
Bret and Steve had great chemistry.
And they knew that even early on.
Yes.
Bret just said, hey, I can do something with this guy.
Without a doubt. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then there's kind of the
to go back to your, that question a little bit. When Steve came in, he went around on top with Shawn Michaels when Shawn was the champion. Ice cold with no angle, not a lot of promotion. It was just Steve Austin, the $1 Million Champion, and Shawn, and they tore the house down every night. And everybody wanted to, they're guys you want to work with. And Steve was one of those guys. And Bret's one of those guys that everybody wanted to work with. So Bret, seeing Steve, he loved working. He being Bret loved working with Austin.
So Bret is now kind of, this is the fall of 96. I think it's October. I'm freestyling. And there is a discussion about will he or won't he, at least for television purposes, as far as will he sign with WCW? Will he return to the WWF?
Oh, God.
And that's when it comes out that he signed a 20-year deal. Carry us through that whole contract situation. What was real? What wasn't? This is a weird time in the WWF. The NWO is really starting to take hold. Jim Ross has turned heel. He's brought back fake Razor and fake Diesel. Farouk is, Ron Simmons has a stupid gladiator outfit on. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the promotion. So carry us through. If you're defending the Farouk thing, we got to circle back to that. Carry us through the contract situation with Bret in the fall of 96.
Well, the Farouk thing was great. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. A lot of people skip over that part. That's funny. There was, again, I don't really remember the time frame either. But the issue was Bret it was during a time that WCW was on fire. They were kicking our ass in the ratings, and they were offering deals to a lot of our talent who had contracts that were coming up. Bret being one of those people. Bret indicated that he didn't want to go, that he wanted to stay in the WWF at the time.
Can I ask who you think would have helped set that up? Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, DDP?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I have absolutely no clue on that.
Okay.
But the situation was one that, again, let's go back even, in the same time period. Hulk Hogan's contract was up at WCW coming up. So Hulk was also negotiating.
I see.
Which very few people actually know. Hulk was negotiating, and Hulk put the feelers out. He wanted to see if there was anything back in New York.
And this is just a few months after the NWO. That would have been July of 96 when Hogan joined. We're in October now.
He was Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
So we're just a couple of months in to a pretty big-time angle, and Hogan sending feelers out.
Yeah.
Okay.
His contract was up. He had the option. He had the right to at that time. And we were exploring those options, seeing, what do we want to do? Hulk Hogan's available. Hulk Hogan arguably was the guy who the WWF was built on. And
that's arguable.
Biggest,
yeah, that's not arguable.
Some people will argue it.
Sure.
But here you have Hulk Hogan who's available and wanting to come home, if you will. And you've got Bret Hart, whose contract is coming up, and is wishy-washy on where he wants to be. Well, if you lose Bret, what do you
pick up? Yeah.
Right. And if there's an opportunity to pick up a Hulk Hogan, then do you need Bret?
Right.
So that was debated back and forth. Vince went out to Denver and met with Hogan.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it. Vince went out there to meet with him and, tried to keep it private. And Hulk was like, no, man, let's go down.
Are those all airport meetings? Do they always meet?
No, they met in a hotel.
Okay.
And Vince was like, you want to come up to the room? He says, no, let's go down to the restaurant. And they met in public. So everybody could see, and Hulk's thing was, I believe, looking back, and, we thought about it afterwards, that was obviously a Hulk
negotiation tactic for WCW.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
And we, had Hogan's contract. We looked at it. We had an opportunity to match it, make it better, give him an offer. But WCW had the opportunity to match it.
Sure.
With Turner. So, again, we went back and forth, Hulk Bret, Hulk Bret, Hulk Bret, Hulk Bret, and chose Bret.
So you guys didn't make an offer to Hogan?
I don't think we did.
And you don't think you did because his contract demand was too much?
His asking was too much. His asking was a lot. However, Vince being...
Do you remember a number?
I don't. But I do remember Vince saying that if it helps you, Terry, I'll make you an offer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, Vince is always good.
That's
like
pretty
that.
good. That's pretty solid of him.
Yeah, he said, if it helps you, I'll make you an offer. And I'll honor it if it's what you want to do, but I'm not going to pay you what you're asking.
Right.
And so the decision was made to make Bret an offer.
So at this point, you guys negotiate terms with Bret, and there's been a lot of talk about that contract. Was it really a 20-year deal?
Yes.
And do you remember, was it $1 million a year for 20 years? Is that what the number was?
No, it was not. No, it wasn't. It was staggering numbers. It was high during the times that Bret was wrestling.
And on
for
TV.
For the remaining years that he had left to compete inside the ring. And then there was a period where he would appear periodically as an attraction. And then there was a time that we wanted Bret to be a part of the office and be a part of the company, developing talent, working with talent behind the scenes. And
how do you think Bret would have did in that role?
I think Bret would have been a good teacher. I think Bret could help guys with telling stories in the ring. Look, say what you want to about Bret Hart.
I didn't say anything bad.
People have.
Okay.
I probably have. But Bret in the ring told beautiful stories.
But you think he would have been a good teacher, too? I'm not saying that Bret couldn't have been. I'm just wondering what you think.
I do think he would have been a great teacher because Bret always asked the right questions.
Okay.
And he always would tell you why he did something and understood the psychology of why he was doing something.
Well, did you have a conversation with Bret to know why he picked WWF over WCW at the time?
Well, okay. Let's get to that. So, the offer's made.
Right.
Bret didn't give us an answer.
For how long?
You remember that night on Monday Night Raw?
Oh, come on.
God is my witness.
Uh-uh.
Okay, because you were there.
No, I'm just saying that whole Vince acting, oh, my gosh, or thank goodness, that was a shoot.
Bret didn't show up until 1 hour before we went live.
Okay, so he told him backstage, and then...
Yeah, but we weren't sure what he was going to do live, honest to God. We were not really sure. Yes, he did tell us beforehand. He did. But he showed up an hour before.
Which is uncharacteristic of him.
Not really.
Okay.
But it's bad business. And with everything that was going on with Nitro, stealing our guys, and
people are on edge.
There's a window. Yeah, it wasn't comfortable. I didn't think that was cool.
Right.
But he did show up late. Told him what he was going to do. But there was still that, is he going to go out on live TV and say, I'm going to Nitro?
Right.
There was a little bit of that unknown.
Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, of course you would have done that. But so I want to talk about this. He negotiated with WCW years before in 1991 and thought he could leave and then found out that his contract had rolled over.
And he was negotiating with WCW then.
So there's a whole lot of Bret Hart, super fans who say, oh, Bret would never do that. But in reality, he'd already done it once before.
Right.
Okay. So he makes the announcement in the ring, and I assume the conversation had been, when you come back, we'll put you with Steve at Survivor Series, because that was a month later.
Well, I'm sure there was discussion, at the time as far as we had an idea what we wanted to do with Bret.
Yeah.
But there was also serious discussion, okay, what if he leaves?
Yeah.
There's discussion, what if he leaves and we get Hogan? But then there was also the very real possibility of, what if we don't get Hogan and Bret leaves anyway?
So let's fast forward to Survivor Series 1996. It's one of my very favorite pay-per-views you guys put on. It's really a pretty historical pay-per-view in hindsight. Rocky Maivia makes his debut. Yokozuna's last pay-per-view. Jake Roberts is there. Snook is there.
Garden?
Yeah, in the Garden. It's a really big show. And two of the matches really kind of start to shape the future of the WWE a little bit. Supposedly, Vader was supposed to be in the main event against Shawn Michaels. That didn't go well at SummerSlam from Shawn's perspective. So, supposedly an audible is called. Sid is put into that spot. The Garden totally dumps all over Shawn. Cheers Sid, even when he attacks Jose Lothario with the camera. So, it's a different time in professional wrestling. And the undercard, Bret and Austin put on one hell of a match, and they do the WrestleMania 8 finish that Bret did with Piper, where he pushes off the top turnbuckle with the sleeper hold and still gets the pin. I know you're laughing because I remember all that. But it was a phenomenal show. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. What was the climate coming out of that show, knowing, okay, the New York, which we've always heard, the Garden, is kind of Vince's measuring stick. Would you agree with that? That's what we've all heard online, that Vince really thought the pulse of the WWF was what the Garden thought.
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, that's fair.
So now they're shitting on Shawn, and they're cheering Sid. What's the conversation coming out of that show?
Well, I think that we always question ourselves. You know, we always had plan A and plan B for most things that we did. You know, you always discuss what if. But
2 months after that, you're doing a super show at a dome.
Well, that's the thing. And we had that kind of in our sights that, okay, we're going to San Antonio, Shawn's hometown. They're not going to boo him there. Very traditional town. And, you know, we got to put 70,000 people in there. So do you switch gears? We went with it and kind of looked at it as a bit of an aberration for what the Garden was that night. They booed the shit out of The Rock, too.
Right.
You know, Rocky Maivia. They booed Snuka that night in a place where Snuka was a god. And we just stayed the course, you know, because we knew where we wanted to go with Shawn, and we knew where we wanted to go with San Antonio in January. And it was a way of kind of christening Shawn as the champion in January in front of a big crowd.
I want to pick your brain about that Royal Rumble show. Jim Cornette said once in a shoot interview, and I thought this was an excellent analogy. Sometimes you have a show that needs a dome, and then sometimes you have a dome that needs a show. That felt like, based on the promotion, because we would hear, reports that you love, the rumors and innuendo, that you guys had to paper the shit out of that building and were giving tickets away, and ticket prices were very economical. Was this just to kind of flex your muscles against WCW and show that you could still put on a big show? Or it seems really weird to have a Royal Rumble that large of an arena. It had never been done before. Why then?
Well, it was as I said, it was an opportunity to give Shawn a showcase, a big showcase, a dome in his hometown. It was a great deal.
Okay,
for
there
the dome.
It is. That's what I needed.
So that was a huge part of it. And the ticket prices were economical because it wasn't a WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We're in a part of the country, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of middle class that weren't going to pay those huge prices.
Right.
So it was always...
It's not New York.
Yeah, it's not New York, but it also wasn't WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I think that you could go into San Antonio with a WrestleMania and get WrestleMania prices. I believe that. But when we went in there, it was a Royal Rumble. You got an awesome deal on the building, so you could do lower ticket prices, still do a much larger gate than you could have done at the Joe and Harry Freeman Coliseum, and put a lot of people in there, make it look good for the event and for Shawn's kind of anointment, if you will.
So let's talk about that. That Royal Rumble, another one of my favorite shows. It comes down to 4 guys. You guys do that. What a superstar lineup that 97 Royal Rumble has too. If you haven't seen it, probably the breakout performance of Stone Cold Steve Austin at that point. But it comes down to the final 4, and they do a final 4 pay-per-view the very next month in Chattanooga, and it's Undertaker, Vader, Bret Hart, and Steve Austin. And the plan, I think, was whoever wins that is going to face Shawn for the title at WrestleMania. But along the way, someone loses their smile. So carry us through I Lost My Smile and how you first heard about it and what your thoughts were and what the common feeling amongst the boys backstage was at that time.
Oh, we were in Lowell, Massachusetts, and Shawn had injured his knee.
Did you just find out that day it was happening, or did you know ahead of time?
No, we found out that day.
He showed up to the building and said, I'm dropping the belt.
Yes.
So you guys have to just scramble and rewrite everything.
Hang on. No, let me take that back. We knew Shawn was injured, and we knew it wasn't good news. So
The knee, right?
The knee, yes.
Okay.
So we knew that we had to get the title off of Shawn. And the idea was that they would have a short match and a quick deal and put the title on Sid.
In Lowell, Massachusetts. Or just wherever.
That's where we were.
Okay.
You know, you get the news, you're given this information, you got to do something, you got a live TV show to do it on.
And then an audible is called, and this is the famous
What
show.
audible was called?
He forfeited the belt in the middle of the ring.
Well, okay, hang on. You're getting ahead of me. You're going into your conspiracies now.
Well, no, I'm just following what you just said. You just said the plan was to drop it to Sid.
The idea was, and Shawn didn't want to do that. And Shawn felt that he wanted to go in the ring and forfeit the title.
Now,
Not what we wanted to do. Wasn't our plan A, wasn't our plan B. But it's kind of what we were stuck with. And at no time did anyone know that he was going to lose a smile in the middle of the promo.
So let me ask you, when you're saying it's not what Shawn wanted to do, does Shawn present that as, man, I don't want to lose the belt in 5 minutes when I can't give my best performance? Or does Shawn just say, man, I ain't doing a job like that. I'm just going to drop the belt.
You know, his thing was, I can't have a match.
Okay.
When people see me, they expect to see Shawn Michaels' performance. I think it's a chicken shit way to get the belt off of me. I'd prefer to just go in and forfeit the belt.
So there's no talk
Shawn has a pride about him.
Sure.
That if he can't go in and be the Shawn Michaels that he thinks he can be, he'd rather not perform.
Yeah, he kind of addressed that on the Ric Flair show earlier this year, where he's always said what happens between the ropes, the actual match, that's what matters. Everything else is just conversation.
Yes.
So you made a comment there where you said we didn't know he was going to lose his smile until halfway through the promo. So that line,
I didn't know he was going to lose his smile till he said it.
Okay. So when you're sitting back watching the monitor wearing a headset like you are now, and he says that, your reaction is?
Well, we try to watch our language here.
No, we don't.
So, yeah, we do.
All right. Well, censor yourself.
No, it was just kind of what the fuck.
Yeah.
Because that's not forfeiting the title because of an injury that's not going to allow you to perform.
I'm depressed, I'm leaving.
That's, mommy says I lost my smile.
So let's just ask let's address the elephant in the room. When he first says this, how many people are saying he just didn't want to drop the belt to Bret?
Oh, everybody's saying that.
Okay.
He wasn't dropping the belt to Bret. He was dropping it to Sid.
Well, but I mean, in terms of the knee injury, if he comes up lame in February, he can't drop the belt to Bret a month later.
But who says he was going to drop the belt to Bret a month later?
What was the plan?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't remember.
You just don't know it all, Conrad.
You know what? We started this thing. We're going to talk about Montreal. Now you're racking my brain back to the
let's run through this
other stuff.
No one listening is disappointed right now. Everybody has heard Montreal 1,000 damn times.
This is true. Thank you for bringing it up.
And we're going to get there, but we're going to tell the backstory along the way.
Okay.
I think this is way better.
Don't get hot.
Okay.
You're hot now. But folks, Conrad's hot. He's pissed. He's over there sitting, shrugging in his chair.
Okay, so let's run through it.
Now he's mad. Go ahead.
I'm not mad at all.
Yeah,
so the decision is made to do an old switcheroo. Bret wins the Final Four, but then drops it to Sid on Raw. Loses it to Sid. We start to see a little more edge for the very first time from Bret. Was there any conversation about how difficult it would be to start the heel turn of Bret Hart?
What do you mean?
Well, Bret had been a babyface for such a long time at that point, and now he's going to, claim he was screwed by, to drop the belt to Sid on Raw. And then he's going to have a cage match, and then he's going to say he was screwed there. He's going to cuss on live TV. We're almost to WrestleMania 13 now. You guys are going to do a double turn. I'm wondering if he had any reservations about being this hero and this baby face and this face of the company, the face that runs the place, so to speak. And now he's going to be a heel.
No, not at all. Not that I remember. And frankly, the hotter the baby face, the hotter the heel.
Sure.
So the fact that he was all the things that you just described made it easier to make him a heel.
When you guys would have someone cuss on the microphone on television, would you give USA a heads up on that, or would you just say?
Well, we had a delay in the truck, so we could nip it in the truck.
You didn't always.
No.
So
Sometimes we're human. We miss it.
on purpose.
Conrad.
You're making a face right now. If you're really trying to get him over, you want one to slip through every now and again. Is that more of a ask forgiveness, not permission type situation?
Depends on the situation.
Okay, you're not going to give me an answer. Let's move along. So WrestleMania 13
It's a rib,
here.
Conrad. It was just a rib.
Oh, I see. I'm trying to not do that this week.
Yeah, it's just a rib.
WrestleMania.
But we looked in the box of gimmicks and we said, what should we do? Okay, go ahead.
WrestleMania 13, one of my very favorite matches of all time. That's a great time in wrestling. Steve Austin, Bret Hart, I Quit match. Ken Shamrock is the referee. Whose idea was it to involve Shamrock? Did you know all along he was going to be a wrestler? Were you just trying to feel him out? And at this point, we're just going to do a special appearance, like a one-off? Or what's the plan with Shamrock?
Oh, hell no. Shamrock was signed.
Mm-hmm.
Shamrock was in. He was just waiting to introduce him.
Did you have the finish in mind, or you guys have the finish in mind for that Steve Austin, Bret Hart match before you announced it was a submission match, or did you just reach in the box of gimmicks and say submission match, even though Austin didn't have an I Quit maneuver?
Well, I think it was Howard Finkel's turn to pick in the box of gimmicks.
Oh,
so
gosh.
he reached in and came up with an I Quit match, and that's, it just happened. That's how it works.
What's the real deal?
No, it was simply a situation of you've got a great technician in Bret, great technician in Steve Austin. They'd seen the other matches, and it made sense. It just made sense.
So the finish was booked at what point?
Probably that day.
So really an awesome match. He bleeds out, so to speak. He passes out. He doesn't tap out. He doesn't quit. Iconic thing that they never show on TV anymore because of the color. Bret does the honors for him. Is there any nervousness about, when I say do the honors, I mean with zip, he had a little help doing it. And Austin has admitted it's not something that he did often or he felt comfortable with or whatever. So Bret did it for him. Do you remember that being a conversation? Is that commonplace back then for one of the boys to take care of another in that regard? You're very weird about me asking this, aren't you? Is this the one sacred thing you're not supposed to talk about?
No, it was not approved. It was not part of the match. Guys went into business for themselves.
So he was supposed to just pass out, and they decided to add the element of color.
Yep.
Now, come on, are you serious?
You asked me a question, I answered your question.
Wow, that's news to me. I didn't expect that. So we come out of here, and you do maybe the most magnificent double turn in the history of the WWF.
Yes,
at that
wasn't it
point.
great?
I mean, it really was.
It was.
And you're not being facetious there, are you? It was phenomenal.
No, I think
Okay.
it was. I think it's one of those that
Best ever?
guys should study to see how two guys can walk into the ring in opposite roles and leave in opposite roles.
So now Bret's the heel,
magnificent.
and we start getting into the spring, and there's some interesting stuff happening. At one point, Bret has to go have a knee surgery. He is in a wheelchair. I want you to just take it from here because you know exactly where I'm going. He's in a wheelchair. It's the end of Raw. There's a famous segment. He and Shawn are in the ring. What happened? What was supposed to happen?
Well, yeah, I guess the more significant part of that is what didn't happen on air. The end of the show was for Shawn to super kick Bret out of the chair.
So Bret's in the chair running Shawn down with the mic.
Yes, but Bret was supposed to get to a certain line and make a certain statement that would get Shawn to kick him out of the chair. And back in those days, we had a hard time. We had to get out on the USA Network when we were live. So we didn't have these 5, 10, 15, 20-minute runovers that, they can do now whenever they feel like it. So if we got to that point, we would ask for extra time. Sometimes they'd give us 30 seconds. Sometimes they'd give us a minute. I believe on this occasion, they might have given us 90 seconds. But we're cueing Bret, cueing Shawn, letting them know exactly how much time is left, and Bret's just not doing it.
What's that mean? He's not wearing an earpiece. So tell everybody.
There were people around. You got cameramen. You got people around the ring.
And they have hand signals or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he knows it's time.
You're winding them up. You're wrapping them up, telling them, go home. Like, we're going off the air.
Yeah.
And
he ignores it.
He ignored it. Bret just flat out ignored it.
And so eventually Shawn does the super kick, but it's not on television.
Sure wasn't.
And so when Shawn comes backstage, what happens?
He was livid. He was pretty pissed off.
He knew it had been missed. He knew they were off.
Yeah. I mean, because at some point when we went off the air, people stopped giving him cues and were like, we're off the air.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
And Shawn knew we were off the air because he knew that he was seeing him give the cues, and Bret was seeing him give the cues.
And Bret just did that just to steal the thunder.
I don't know why he did it. To this day, I don't know why he did it.
So they start going back and forth. At one point, there's a Sunny Days comment. What was the feeling backstage when the Sunny Days comment comes out?
You know, I think that people had kind of chosen sides, if you will. You know, there are people in Shawn's camp, people in Bret's camp.
Okay.
And I think that Bret and Shawn stirred up both sides. I think they were equally can take credit for stirring the other one up. And I don't think it was appropriate to do on live TV. It was an inside deal for whatever reason that I don't like doing inside personal stuff on air and in public. It doesn't add anything to the product. It doesn't do anything. It's just petty and bullshit.
Was that talk really going on backstage? Was there really whispers about a Bret Hart Sonny thing at the time? I'm not asking whether or not it really happened. People were married at the time. I'm saying
there probably was. I mean, to say specifically, I really don't remember. I remember the comment.
Sure.
I remember the comment. I remember Bret being pretty upset about it.
So at some point, this comes to a head, and people are yanking hair in the back. Carry us through the backstage fight. I believe this would have been, I'm guessing, June of 97.
Hartford, Connecticut.
I'm freestyling, but you remember. So tell us about this hair incident.
Well, it was, I wasn't there in the middle of the fight, but from an eyewitness, you know, they being Bret and Shawn had words.
Is the eyewitness Jerry Lawler?
No.
Okay.
Was Lawler an eyewitness to it too?
I don't know. I just hear Lawler has the hair.
He may. I don't know. But Shawn and Bret got into it, and they locked up. I don't know that... I really don't even know that any punches were thrown, but they locked onto each other's hair, and they went through a wall, you know, like a false wall that we had up for interviews and stuff. They went through the wall.
What time of day is this? Is this early afternoon, or is this right before the show? Or
no, this is kind of late afternoonish, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock,
okay,
something like that. And we were next door in Vince's office. And we're going over whatever the hell we're going over. And Shawn came in holding clumps of his own hair and talking about unsafe work environments. And we ended up sending both guys home and did the show without them.
So at that point, was there talk about, I'm not working with that guy anymore, I'm not putting that guy over? Do you remember any of that?
No. It was two guys that were pissed off. It was emotional, and, you know, it spilled over. I mean, it happens. It's a physical business. It's an emotional business. And when Shawn did the Sunny Days comment, I believe Bret caught a ration of shit from his wife. And, you know, hey, you got so many days on the road, you go home to see your family, the last thing you need is to have
getting some shit.
Yeah, you know. So Bret was upset, and they got into it. I mean, it happens.
So at this point, there's a quick little experiment with Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels as tag champions, which a lot of people just kind of gloss over and don't even remember. Bret's having a series of phenomenal matches during this time with Steve Austin, and really making Steve Austin with figure fours around a post, the ambulance, just lots of fun stuff.
I think that the stuff with Bret Hart and Steve Austin is probably some of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen.
And I think Bret's 1997 is the best year he ever had in the business as far as just overall entertainment and quality.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, it stands up even now. It's phenomenal. That July pay-per-view in Canada, Canadian Stampede, was outstanding. If you haven't ever seen that, it's one of the hottest crowds ever. You may not understand exactly what you're seeing because it's just a weird deal, and I want to talk about that. The dynamic of, by the time you get to midsummer, Bret has ran down America so hard with some really great lines about if you had to give the United States an enemy, you'd stick the hose in this town.
Pittsburgh.
Just phenomenal stuff. So south of the border, he is a heel, but north of the border, he is cheered like the second coming.
Yes.
Was this always the design?
No.
It just happened.
It's organic. It just happened. And vice versa are baby faces in the States. And it kind of trends. I mean, it wasn't all the way
Bret.
up and down the card.
Yeah.
The Americans were
heels
booed
in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting dynamic. I mean, you cross an imaginary line. You're in another country, but you step over that line, you're a different person.
So let's run through that now. Around this time, you guys had to start having conversations with Dale Wilkes, who you worked with back in Global as the Patriot. So when this sort of America versus Canada situation starts to really boil, who says, hey, what about Dale Wilkes?
Well, it wasn't about the America-Canada thing. Dale Wilkes was just a talent that was out there and available. I'd worked with Dale in Dallas with the GWF, Global Wrestling Federation, out there in the Global Dome, Dallas, Texas, formerly known as the Sportatorium, Sacred Ground, not there anymore. But
the ground still is.
It is. But Dell was available, and I always liked Dell, and we brought him in. And it happened to be, his gimmick is the Patriot. Great timing.
Why do you think he never got a shot in the WWF before then? He'd been around a long time, and he had a good look. His work wasn't bad. I mean...
Well, I think he had a great deal in Japan.
Okay.
And Dell, I don't know if he was that interested in working the schedule that the WWF had.
I see.
So, but it was also one of those deals where it just didn't happen.
Yeah. So right time, right place. Dell's there now. So we're in the fall now of 1997, and some fun stuff is still happening. Now, August, I guess we should cover this. Undertaker versus Bret Hart. Shawn Michaels is the referee. There's some tension between all three parties, but specifically between Bret and Shawn. At some point in the match, Shawn is involved. There's a chair there. Bret spits at Shawn. Shawn cranks back with the chair, smashes the Undertaker. Accidentally now, Bret Hart is the champion for what would be the final time. But it still starts to sow the seeds of Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Did you know at SummerSlam that was going to be the plan for Survivor Series?
Yes.
So the original plan was we sow these seeds right here, right then.
That was the whole reason for it.
Okay, so that sets up Survivor Series. What was the plan for Royal Rumble and WrestleMania as far as 14 goes?
Wow. I'm pretty sure that's what we did. The only thing that happened.
The plan was for Shawn to beat Bret at Survivor Series, and then what happens at the Rumble, and then Austin beats Shawn at WrestleMania.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if it was necessarily at Survivor Series. Bret sped that up, with leaving.
So it could have been the Rumble.
Could have been the Rumble, but the idea was always to have. There were a lot of things that were discussed, frankly, but it was.
Give me another alternative idea.
Bret and Steve.
So another alternative idea would have been Bret just keeps the belt and drops it to Steve at 14.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, it was, again, you had A, B plans.
Sure. Okay.
So the reason it went with Shawn, again, timing and Bret leaving.
So let's run through that.
There was talk, you want to get really crazy when we were talking about Hogan way back when. There was talk of that being Hogan.
It could have been Hogan and Austin.
Yeah.
At 14.
Yeah.
Wow. That would have looked a lot different.
I mean, but again, that's where I say, there were A, B, C, D scenarios of different things that we could do. The Hogan scenario went out that night when...
So this is kind of weird to ask, but at this point, I don't know another way to ask it. Shawn's made it public. Was his addiction situation starting to get out of hand, in your opinion?
Shawn's?
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
So he's just becoming difficult.
When you say out of hand, it was I can't remember a time ever that Shawn was impaired to go in the ring.
Okay. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and go through September. It's ground zero. Undertaker dives over the ring for the first time. Now it looks like, well, we got to put these guys in a cage. Bad blood happens. It's the first ever Hell in a Cell. Kane makes his debut. Lots of stuff going on right here.
Right.
Now we're in the next pay-per-view, and it's Survivor Series. And there's talk the week of the show, Bret's done. Bret's on his way out. So behind the scenes, what's going on when supposedly Vince McMahon goes to Bret and says, we can't afford you? From your perspective, how do you remember that happening?
Well, he did it in the Garden. I remember that. I don't remember how many weeks
out it was,
but I remember being in the Garden. I remember.
Were you in the room when it happened?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not. Did
you know Vince was going to tell him that?
Yes,
that day?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And it was Bret showing up late.
So that
Vince had wanted to meet with him earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Bret showed up late. So when Vince had his meeting, I don't know that Vince was
in the best mood.
In the best of moods because he had to go out and do commentary and what have you. And in typical Vince McMahon fashion, that was October. Let's cut to the chase, pal. Here's where we are.
That's October because that's when Cactus Jack came back.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was done, and Vince kind of got right to the point and told him, we can't do this. And I'm be happy to renegotiate, but I'll also go and reopen your talks with WCW, and if there's any way I can help you get more money there, I'll do that.
Are you comfortable saying what you think the contract value was at the time?
No.
Are you comfortable saying whether or not he was the highest paid performer? Was Bret Hart the highest paid performer in the promotion at the time he was asked to take a pay cut?
That's a tricky question. Bret was one of the highest paid performers, yes.
Top 3?
Yes.
Okay. So the other ones may have been Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker? Okay. All right, I got a hand gesture that tells me maybe. Okay, I didn't know this was sort of keeping kayfabe with Bruce Prichard, but I guess it is.
Well, no, those are personal and those are business,
I didn't
confidential.
ask for a specific number.
Yeah, you did.
Well, I said, are you comfortable with it?
Yeah.
I
said no.
I'm going to guess $500,000. Am I in the ballpark?
I don't know.
Okay, you do know. Maybe we'll put a poll up. Do you want to know the real number next week? I think I'm probably the only person listening who cares about that. Anyway, I am curious. What's the mood when Bret leaves the room as far as you remember? Is this a total shock to him? Is he happy that he maybe can go get more money? He's had problems with Shawn here.
Well, again, I was not in the room. I was not a part of the conversation.
But you were around Bret post-meeting.
I was, and I guess pouty is a word.
Okay.
I don't know that Bret was...
He wasn't happy about it.
He wasn't showing up that day to learn, hey, we can't afford you.
Yeah.
So... I'm sure he had a lot of things running through his head.
So, at what point do you become aware he's leaving?
Well, Vince gave him the opportunity and gave him, whatever paperwork he needed to negotiate with WCW and to go out and get his stuff. I want to say we probably knew maybe 10 days out before the pay-per-view. In that area, give or take. I don't know exactly when we found out. We found out, obviously, before the pay-per-view so that we could plan that he was leaving.
So when you find out the week before the pay-per-view, had you guys already started discussing what was going to happen as far as how the belt would be taken off? There's been lots of debate about would it be at Survivor Series, would it be at Raw after? What do you remember about that?
Oh, no. It was always we needed to do it at the pay-per-view.
Okay. So... that was the internal talk. We're going to do it at the pay-per-view. From your perspective, what comes back to you? Like, does Vince come in and say, he doesn't want to drop the damn belt now?
No, Bret was a part of that decision. And Bret was a part of helping us come up with an idea on how to get the belt off of him and what we do. We explained that, when I say we, it was Vince. I was privy to those conversations as a witness. But it was simply, this is what we have to do.
All right.
You understand what we have to do, and he understood what we had to do, and help us get there. And it just it was like pulling teeth. It was very difficult. Bret never, to my recollection, he didn't like dropping the belt, didn't want to drop the belt in Montreal, but he was willing to do it. He indicated, I'll do it. We just got to figure out how we're going to do it.
So
but trying to figure out how we're going to do it, as Randy Savage used to say, you win them in the ring and you lose them in the ring. It was difficult that's the best way I can describe trying to come up with a scenario.
Give me an example.
I don't know. It just was
freestyle a suggestion.
You get Hunter involved, and I don't know, and we do something and it backfires, or Owen comes in and it backfires, and then we can do something with Owen and Davey. There were, and again, the specifics, I don't know if that was it, but there were specifics. There were different things, and it was thrown back. Okay, Bret, you don't like that.
What about this?
Give me an idea.
Yeah.
Or give me something.
Sure.
Give me something you do like. And we didn't get a lot of feedback, if any. So it was frustrating in that regard that everything that we threw out was, no, I don't want to do that. But we didn't get anything, how about this? So that was a big frustration. The time that it consumed, this one match, as we're going in, and that one match, frankly, was now going to affect everything we were doing. So it was just difficult, and we had, come up. I don't even remember what the hell they'd come up with, frankly, but it was talk to Pat Patterson, come up with something. But then, of course, the Wrestling with Shadows documentary bullshit that they did with Bret wearing a wire in, talking with Vince alone, which was Vince didn't talk to Bret alone through any of that until that one time when he got him. And it was, Vince.
So you said bullshit, and then you said he got him. So you still hold a lot of animosity towards that film or the practices that it took to get that recording?
I don't think that it was, that's not real ethical to send one guy in with a wire and record him while he's having a private business meeting with someone else. I don't like that. I don't think that's necessarily ethical.
We're recording this conversation right now.
I do.
Okay.
I'm well aware of that.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so carry me through that, I guess. Supposedly, there's a phone call that happens, and Hunter is the one who suggests, quote-unquote, fucking him. Is that the way you remember it?
There were a lot of people that suggested it.
Okay. Who else suggested it?
I suggested it. Jim Cornette suggested it. Hunter suggested it.
So it wasn't a revolutionary idea. Lots of people were like, if he don't want to drop the belt, we'll make him drop the belt.
Exactly. Been done before.
And supposedly, Shawn asked Briscoe to show him some holds in case he had to defend himself. Is that true or false?
It's true.
Okay. So when would you have known, hey, if he don't want to do it, we're going to do this? What day of the week would that have been? I assume it was week
Well, first of all, that conversation never took place. We went in to that match. When I say we, everyone with the exception of Shawn.
So when everybody suggests, let's just fuck him, Vince always says, as far as you know,
we got to come up with something else, yeah.
Okay.
We got to come up with another way.
So when do you find out that Shawn asked Briscoe for some...
I didn't find out anything until after the fact.
Okay, so let's fast forward.
So no, I did not know.
You're watching, I assume, is it fair for me to assume you're in Gorilla when this happens? So you're in Gorilla, you're wearing a headset just like you are right now.
No different, there's only one ear.
And from what I remember, the Hart Foundation, Owen and Davey, are right behind you, about to run
Actually, they were right in front of me.
They're about to run through the curtain to do a schmoz finish, which is what Wrestling with Shadows presented as what the original plan was supposed to be.
Right.
The bell rings. You're watching the monitor. It's not the finish you remember booking or calling or you're looking for.
Correct.
Pick it up from there.
Well, okay, I'll give you guys... Okay, I'll go back and... I was going to say, I'll give you something that's never been discussed.
No, do it.
Because it's personal.
Do it.
But No, I'm going to go to your point. When the bell rang, and again, I'm watching the match, but I'm doing other things too. And I'm looking for the spot where Davey Boy Smith and Owen Hart, and I think it was Neidhart.
Do a run-in. And we're sitting there, and I hear the bell ring. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm yelling at the timekeeper, why are you ringing the bell? And I look up on my monitor, and Shawn has his leg hooked, and Davey Boy and Owen are standing right in front of me, and Owen's like, what happened? And Bulldog's like, they fucked him. They just fucked Bret. And they screwed him. And they're like, what do we do? I'm like, I don't know. So they turned to look at you to ask what to do.
They were staring at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I guess.
So they assume you know, and you're not playing dumb. You really are dumb to this idea.
I have no clue.
Okay.
No clue whatsoever. I got it once.
It happened.
Once Shawn rolled out to Vince, I got it. And
Shawn tries to play it off like he's not involved. He grabs the belt and stomps backstage, frustrated, like he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
You're about to digress and tell a personal story.
Well, the personal story is that we used to do. Undertaker was not on TV at the time.
Okay.
But he was there.
Okay.
And Taker sat next to me at gorilla position the entire night.
Was that normal?
What?
For Taker to sit by you in gorilla when he wasn't working?
No, I mean, but he had nothing to do, and he was watching the show. So
as far as you knew, but he could have been smartened up and said, "Hey, baby,
hang on,
okay,
hang on." So you just jump into the conclusions. So we're going to do the entrances, and the entrances were we followed both guys live all the way from the dressing rooms, all the way down the hall through gorilla out to the ring.
Well,
I told Taker, I said, "Hey, man," I said, "we're going to be shooting through here, so you need to go and move for the entrances." So Taker just walked down and went into Vince's office to watch the show. Never came back. So we have the match. Everything happens. I'm done, and I'm sitting there like a sitting duck. I have no clue what's going on. And I get up, and I'm going to go back to Vince's office where all my stuff was, and where, we all had our stuff. And as I'm walking back, I see Undertaker standing in the hallway to Vince's office with his arms crossed, kind of looking around. And I'm like, son of a bitch. He knew.
Yeah.
And now he's guarding Vince's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I blow by him, and he's looking at me like I got steaming turds hanging out of my mouth. And we don't say anything to each other.
Won't know if you're going to say something.
Yeah, we don't, I'm mad at him because I think he knows. He's mad at me because he thinks I know, and he thinks I sent him away. So that he wouldn't be there when it happened. Now, what the hell he could have done about it or anything else, I don't know. But, so we think each other knows, and that was just my personal little thing that we had.
Did y'all talk about it later?
Oh, yeah.
So he did know?
No, he never knew. No, he did not know.
But he thought you knew?
He thought I knew.
Okay.
And I thought he knew.
And nobody knew?
And nobody knew.
Okay.
So we were mad at each other, and we were both kind of...
on the same boat?
Yes.
So now Vince throws Bret spits on Vince, throws a tantrum ringside, smashes the TVs, paints WCW with his fingers in the air, comes back through the curtain. Are you still in Gorilla at this point, or have you hightailed it out of there?
No, I was in Vince's office.
So you go to Vince's office, and you assume that everyone will congregate there, or what happens? Does Vince come in the room next, or what happens?
Yeah, Vince and Shane came in. I want to say that Shane came in first. Then Vince came in, then Jerry Briscoe, and then Jerry Briscoe went out and got JR and brought JR in, and that was it.
So you guys are sitting around the office, and then there's the
Nobody was sitting.
Okay, everybody's standing around the office. What's Shane doing during all of this?
I'm sure that everybody who wasn't there probably has this vision of us, sitting around plotting. It was silence. It was silence. We sat there, we watched the monitor, Bret destroying everything.
It's kind of like Mourning a Death a little.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, this is the end. Something traumatic
Right.
has happened.
Well, and we know that it's, and it was far from the end, and we all knew that.
Yeah.
And Jerry Briscoe went to go and, talk to Bret and pretty much go out and face everybody. And, I mean, Briscoe came back, and Vince was like, I need to go and I need to face him. I need to face everybody.
What did Briscoe say Bret said? Do you recall?
Yeah, I don't recall him really saying anything. I don't even know that Jerry spoke to Bret.
So Vince then goes into the locker room where Bret is.
We made that walk and got spat upon by the Hart family along the way in the hallways. I mean, they literally spit on us.
The wrestlers or the family?
The family.
So like his wife and is spitting on you
sisters.
guys.
Yeah,
Wow.
They weren't happy.
So then you walk into the room. At this point, Hunter and Shawn are probably out of there.
No, they were there.
Okay. So walk into the locker room. What happens?
Well, we walked in. On the way there, we were met by Taker.
What?
And
has the director come up yet? Like the company that's filming, has that been a topic of conversation at this point?
What director?
They're shooting Wrestling with Shadows.
Oh, they were nowhere around. That from the standpoint of working with us.
I'm saying as far as Vince goes, is he thinking, "Oh shit, I forgot they're here. We need somebody to neutralize."
Oh God, that was the furthest thing from our mind.
Okay,
that was the furthest thing from anybody's mind.
Okay,
it was kind of like a non-issue.
Okay.
But, we got confronted by Undertaker, Davey Boy, and Owen, and Neidhart. And Vince just looked at him and said, guys, what did you expect me to do? I did it for you. So he wasn't willing to do business. I had to do something. I had to do something to protect each and every one of you guys. And I said, where's Bret? And he went down, walked down the hall. Undertaker went in and pretty much got everybody that was not directly involved in the match, got them out. And I was there, Tony Gurria was there, Sergeant Slaughter, Jerry Briscoe, Shane, and then the guys that were involved in the match. So anybody else that claims to have been there, Earl Hebner was not there. Earl was gone. They weren't there. Even Ken Shamrock asked if he could stay and was asked to leave. So, and it was pretty simple at this point. Bret was in the shower, and Davey went in and told Bret that Vince was here. Bret came out of the shower, still soaking wet, and said, I'm going to finish taking a shower. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to knock you out.
So he goes and takes a shower.
Went in and finished his shower, came out, started to get dressed, and, he and Vince, he cussed at Vince and blah, 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 and Vince just said, Bret, you left me no choice. I had no choice. I had to do what was right for my business. I couldn't allow you to just take the belt and show up at our competitor, and had to do what I had to do. And I would think that you would respect that. And it was heated on Bret's end. Vince was pretty calm through the whole thing. I think both guys' emotions were pretty high. And Bret did exactly what he said he was going to do. Bret got dressed, tied his shoes, picked up his knee brace, threw it in his bag, and got up and punched Vince.
Was it just one punch and he was done? Or
one punch, and everybody was in between them, and Vince went down. But everybody was in between them, and it wasn't going any further than that.
So he smartened up. Vince told all the guys, he deserves a shot. Let him get one.
Yep.
So, it's interesting, when you really dig into what we're talking about here. Because you kind of get the impression that a lot of WWE folks, maybe Vince, maybe not, certainly not then, view the world title as a prop. It's not a big deal. But right here, Vince is really defending that belt.
It was a symbol of the company. It was a symbol of the brand and the company that Vince and his father had built. So to have your champion,
I'm saying
that symbol goes somewhere else.
That symbol gets bounced around in pretty ridiculous fashion these days.
I understand that.
So I'm just wanting to clarify that what a different time it was in mindset.
Right.
So let's kind of address the Medusa thing. Was that ever a discussion? I mean, did you guys really believe that Bret was going to show up on Nitro like Medusa did with the belt?
How would you think anything else?
Did he negotiate when he was the Intercontinental Champion to take that belt to WCW to the best of your knowledge?
I have no idea if he did. I have no idea whatsoever.
Bischoff has always maintained that he never asked Bret to bring the belt and knew that Bret and he knew that Bret could, and he says that because he'd already been sued for that.
Right.
So there was, not just because he's a nice guy, but he knew, I'm going to get sued for that. But he doesn't start on TV for like a month after with WCW. But you guys were still pretty steadfast and, hey, you know what? They'll do it anyway and just take the lawsuit and let him show up a month early.
We didn't know when he was going to show up.
Okay.
We had no idea. But regardless of when he was going to show up, we had to transition that championship to someone else that was going to be here that we could get behind.
So Vince sustains a black eye, I suppose, and some sort of ankle injury in the fall, and then limps out of there, and that's caught on camera in the movie. Your feelings about that being filmed and shown in the movie, or?
I mean, it's real life. I felt that the portrayal, it was not a fair portrayal. And you can say, if everybody says I'm sucking Vince's dick and I'm towing a company line, I don't work for WWE. I probably will never work for them ever again. You never say never, but the way things are, I'll probably never work for them again. I'm quite happy where I am and what I'm doing right now. And no, I don't tow any company line. I have no reason to tow a company line. But I also do not appreciate and will feed into the rumor and innuendo and bullshit. And that documentary was very one-sided.
Yeah.
Their timing was great, but it was strictly one-sided. It wasn't a fair portrayal, but that's what documentaries do. If anybody thinks that reality TV is real and documentaries are just showing you all the facts, no, they're in the interest of whoever's doing the documentary.
So when this fight is over, you guys go back in Vince's office. What happens next? Everybody just goes back to the hotel like a normal night?
We left.
So what conversations are you having when you leave the building? You make a phone call to somebody. You're talking about this. You've got to be, your senses are high. Who are you calling? What are you saying? What's the talk? What's the theme?
Well, Jerry Briscoe's one of my best friends in the whole wide world, and I had a little chat with Gerald.
And he told you that he knew, and that he showed Shawn some hooks or something?
He told me what he had done the night before, and that they had talked about it the night before. And
he went to Shawn's hotel room? Or Shawn went to, okay. You don't remember that part?
I don't know. But, that he knew, and I understood his position. Talked to Vince, and, he pretty much said the same thing to me, because I did it for you. I did it for everyone, in my company.
So the next day you guys go to Raw, and supposedly a handful of guys don't come or say they're not coming.
Mick Foley didn't show up. One guy.
That was it. Everybody else showed.
Everybody else showed.
But then maybe they were a little...
And then Mick called and apologized and was there the next day.
So when you say everybody, Owen, Anvil, Davey, they're all there?
Owen, those guys, no. And Vince asked them not to come.
Okay.
Told them they didn't have to come.
Hawk is there. Everybody
that was supposed to be there was there.
Okay. So is anybody walking around with their ass on their shoulders, so to speak, about Vince screwing one of the boys and they're trying to stand up for the boys, or do people get it?
Some got it, some didn't. And
who didn't get it?
There were a lot of guys that didn't get it. I don't know specifically who, but there were guys that didn't get it. we had a meeting with the guys. I think we didn't have a meeting until the next day because we needed to get business taken care of and move forward.
So Raw, you don't have a meeting.
I don't think we had the meeting at Raw.
But
I
on
think
Tuesday,
we had it on Tuesday.
Okay.
Got everybody together, and Vince explained, "Hey guys."
So like in an arena, they're all in the seats chilling, and
we had it backstage somewhere.
Okay.
Where catering or something like that.
Okay.
I remember the meeting, but I don't remember.
What's
where
the
hell it
gist
was.
of the message that Vince pushes out?
Same exact message that he always said. I did it for you guys. This is the situation, guys. He left, didn't want to do business on the way out. I did what I had to do. I did it to protect you. I did it so that didn't give our competition another edge over us. I did it so that we would be able to continue to do what we do.
He maintains at that time that Shawn didn't know.
Who?
Vince.
They all stuck with that story for a long time, yeah.
Okay. But you knew by then that Shawn knew.
I did know by then, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But there was no.
Briscoe.
But here's here's the reason for that. There was no reason to put undue heat on Shawn.
Oh no, I totally get it. He had enough of that on his own.
Shawn had enough heat on his own, and there was no reason to put undue heat on Shawn. And I'll tell you something that Vince said to me when we got back, because I was upset about it at the time. I felt that you just don't do that. But at the same time, I understood why. And late one night when we got back to the office, and I never forget because I used to like to have my lights off, and I had a lamp on my desk, and I would work by lamplight. And it was later in the evening, and it was dark outside, and Vince comes walking into my office, and I was the only one there. And it's kind of typical Vince. How you doing, pal? So I'm all right. And I was being kind of a dick to him because I get it.
Felt left
I understand. I felt left out. I did. I felt like,
couldn't trust me.
You could have trusted me, and I would have been behind you, and I'm behind you now. But what he said kind of put it all in perspective for me. And I said to him, I said, you could have told me. And he says, then you would have known, and that would have dumped on you. And I didn't want you to have to lie to anybody. This way you can look anybody in the eye
So you
say,
didn't know.
I didn't know, and you weren't a part of it. That was to protect you.
It's pretty smart.
And I said, well, okay. I said, I said something with Shawn's name. He says, well, I want you to think about this. Who else do you think would have had the balls to go in and do what Shawn Michaels did? That took a lot of balls. Not to just do it in the ring, but to walk back through that curtain and face all those guys in the locker room.
Yep.
And he did that for you. And he did that for everybody back there. So, when you're mulling all this over, and I understand your emotions, keep that in mind.
That's a fair assessment.
And, I thought about it, and I was like, you're right. A lot of guys can say, well, I would have done this. I never would have done that. You weren't put in that situation.
Right. So at this point, you guys have told the Hart Foundation not to show up to the TV, but eventually you try to bring them back into the fold. Let's talk briefly about how that's done. It's pretty well documented. Owen got a bump. Owen had to, feel a little weird about not supporting his brother, whatever that meant, but really he had a job to do, and that's the reason he was in the WWF, not to hang out with his brother, not to support his brother, but to support his family. And he made a financial decision to stick around. Did Vince give him that bump out of obligation? Did he give him that bump to reward his loyalty? Did he give him the bump to stick it to the Harts? What's the motivation behind giving Owen Hart a bump to stay?
Owen was put in a difficult position. Owen was Bret's brother, and Owen didn't do anything wrong.
Well, here's my point. Normally, you'd like to think in the wrestling business that your pay is dictated by the level of draw you are and how effective you are for someone's business. Did Owen become that much more effective for the business because his brother got screwed to warrant that type of raise?
Sure he did. Owen was a big part of that. He was a big part of that group, without a doubt. And
he was a big part before, though.
Yes.
But the raise comes after. I'm curious about the timing of the raise.
Well, the raise came after on several accounts. He, frankly, became more valuable after that.
Because he was the biggest Hart.
Because he was the biggest Hart, and he was still there. So there was an issue, and it was a good deal for Owen. But it wasn't. Hey, well, let's pay him off because of Bret. Owen had the opportunity, just like Davey Boy and just like Jim. If they wanted out, Vince offered them their release. Owen didn't want his release. So for his loyalty, for staying, he was rewarded. He was rewarded by being put in a program with Shawn. He was rewarded monetarily, which he deserved.
Yeah.
He was still put in the top program, and he was taken care of, and Owen was,
Do you think he stuck around because he felt like this was his chance to be the top Hart, and now he really didn't have to be Bret's little brother, and maybe he had a chance to stand on his own, and if he went to WCW, he'd still be Bret's little brother?
Yeah, I can't answer that for him, but I know that he wanted to be there.
So, Davey Boy's offered his release, and
I think Davey Boy ended up going down south.
he did. But,
so did Neidhart.
Is that viewed as being a big loss?
To who?
WWF.
Oh, I thought you were talking about WCW.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to...
No, it really wasn't.
When they asked for the release, it's kind of like, as long as we get Owen, we don't care what happens to these two.
No, we were willing to lose Owen if we had to, too. It goes back to the happy locker room theory.
Okay.
Don't want an unhappy locker room.
Yep. And so if they're unhappy, let them go.
If they're unhappy, let them go.
Now, Neidhart leaves and comes back, right? What's it like to have him reintroduced after he asked for his release? Do you remember? Does he call? Do y'all call? That seems like an interesting...
Stu always called.
Really?
Yes.
Stu even called for Jim.
Stu always had to call for Jim.
Okay. And so, give me an idea. What do you think that conversation looked like or felt like for Neidhart to come back?
Vince, can you do something with Rhino? He called Neidhart Rhino.
I'll say.
Big bastard. I sure would appreciate it. Just kind of like that. I mean, it was...
And Vince... Okay, sure.
Vince loves Stu.
At that point, when Davey leaves, he had some well-documented issues. Were those already reeling their head, and it was like, glad we don't have to deal with that?
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but yeah.
So, who first? We're going long here, but we're going to get things wrapped up, but we can't get out of here without talking about this. Who's sitting around the table and says, you know what? Vince has a lot of heat. We should do something with this.
You know what? Oh, God.
For those of you listening right now, let me just clarify. We do not talk about this off air at all. We literally sit down and with no research and just hit the button and talk. And I know some people are going to say that's lazy, but I think this makes for a better show. So, whose idea is that? I have an idea because you don't want to say it.
It kind of happened. It was organic. You know, there were people that used to say, well, goddamn, Vince, if you just went out and were you'd be the hottest heel in the territory.
Who would say that?
Some people. And there were other people that would say, no, Vince is the greatest thing ever. No one could hate him. And this other person would say, are you kidding me? Just go out and be you. You'd be the hottest heel in the company.
So I think the first voice is Pat Patterson. I think the second voice is Jerry Jarrett. I think the third voice is you.
Yeah, I kind of urged him to be himself on camera and let the cards fall where they may.
So he goes on TV and does the, I think you're smarter than good guys versus bad guys.
I think, I don't know this. I take it back. I do know it. But Vince did not go into the interview, Bret screwed Bret, with the anticipation that he was going to come out of that as a character or a heel.
Really?
Vince went into that as an explanation from a company standpoint, thinking that people would rally behind and rah-rah WWF. It was more of a Bret screwed Bret. WCW was trying to screw us. We're the little guys here, and woe is us, thinking people would rally behind. Instead, they went with, well, you're the owner. You could have fixed it. Screw you. And we got Mr. McMahon on our hands.
And that
initial interview
with JR, right?
With JR.
Yep.
That was designed to
just be the company statement.
That was for sympathy.
Did you know when they were taping it? Because you're in the production piece here. Did you know this ain't going to go the way he thinks.
I thought it was great.
Well, but do you thought it was great to establish him as a heel, or you thought, oh, they're going to bleed blue here. They're going to be with the WWF.
Oh, I thought they'd shit all over us.
And they did.
They did.
And,
but they shit over us in a great way.
And so not too long after that, around this time is when, Cornette is coming out and doing rants about WCW and being edgy. Mm-hmm. And Vince does the you're smarter than good guys versus bad guys. And the Attitude Era really gets kicked off. There's a whole lot of talk that Montreal is the greatest work in the history of wrestling.
Because, they outworked me then.
Because Bret made more money. Vince made a lot more money. Set the whole territory on fire. And it was the biggest boom in the history of the business. And it was the match that ignited it all, you could say, was Montreal.
That was all my idea, 100%. Yeah, I thought of it all. I planned it all out. I wish that I could say that, yes, we were that smart and we planned it all. Sometimes things just happen organically and you capitalize on them, and it depends on what you do with it after the fact. This, again, if it was work, I was worked. It's like everybody else.
But you don't believe, as a smart man who spent most of his entire life in the wrestling business, this was a work?
Nope. Do not believe it.
And if it was a work...
If it was work, then they were...
Only Bret and Vince know it.
Right. But a lot of other people would have had to know it for it to be what it became.
What heat, if any, was on Hebner because of this?
Well, obviously there was heat with Bret. I think there was...
Amongst the boys.
Again, I think people had their different camps.
Some people thought that was bullshit.
Yeah, some people thought it was, and some people understood. Earl Hebner had a family to feed. Bret wasn't going to feed him.
Yeah.
His boss asked him to do something. His boss didn't ask him to do something. His boss told him to do something.
Any regrets about the Montreal thing?
None.
Do you think that Vince made the right call, and if he had to do it over again, he'd do it the same way? Or do you think he's learned lessons since about maybe a different way to handle it?
Same set of situations, circumstances, same everything, did exactly the same way.
Was Pat Patterson there that night?
Was he there?
Yeah.
Yes. Pat was agent for the match.
Did Pat know?
Nope.
Was Pat upset with Vince?
Very.
How long was it before they fixed things?
Probably took a little while, but Pat was very upset because Pat was vulnerable. Bret thought Pat knew. Bret thought we all knew.
Well, and Pat was pretty good friends with Bret.
Yes.
And they're in his hometown. They're in Montreal. And
yes.
I could imagine that was a pretty emotional deal for Pat.
But Vince didn't tell Pat
for the
same reasons he didn't tell me, didn't tell JR, didn't tell a lot of guys, to protect him.
So Vince let Bret believe the next night on Raw he's going to forfeit the belt.
I guess
we're not going to really do that.
I guess from that, yeah.
So at that point, when you think he's going to drop the belt on Raw, before the match, of course, what did you think would be the angle that would set up the December pay-per-view and then the January Royal Rumble and then WrestleMania? Before the bell rings, before you know, well, shit, that's all different.
I mean, the idea was get to WrestleMania with Steve. That was the plan.
Steve and Bret at that point.
Well, you're talking about Raw. Okay,
so he drops it to Shawn the next night.
Well, you got to get it to somebody that's going to be here.
Okay. So he would have...
Bret ain't going to be here. So Bret ain't an option anymore.
Okay.
So, go with the hot heel.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we can talk about Montreal? Any other memories that stick out? Because I can't imagine that there's many stones that have been unturned, but the Undertaker story was a big one for me.
Yeah, it was, again, that was personal stuff, and Taker and I didn't speak for a day, and we had a fairly heated and emotional conversation the next day, but, we got through it.
So, any other details about Montreal you'd like to share before we wrap this one up?
None that I can think of. I think it's been analyzed and covered to death.
Well, I really appreciate you allowing us to go into such depth, and I know I started, more than a year prior, but I really feel like prior to that re-signing...
Don't apologize to me. Apologize to those people that answered a poll and wanted to talk about Montreal, and you're talking about
No, we got
Cleveland.
there. Well, we got there. The gist of what Montreal happened was getting out of a contract and you can't really talk about that unless you talk about how the contract started to me. And now you've got the full story.
Well, I liked it.
What happened when you personally screwed Bret Hart in Montreal?
I didn't screw Bret Hart. Bret screwed Bret.
What a great way to end it. Be sure to throw us a follow at Prichard Show on Twitter. We're going to take a poll every single week to cover a topic that you want to. Trust me, this is going to be a fun ride. You don't want to miss out. Tell your friends, hit the subscribe button. Let's make it happen. We'll see you next week on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Okay, so that's going to finish up our conversation with Bruce. That is the end of the 2016 episode. Coming up now is something that we've done in the last year or so over at adfreeshows.com. Every other week, we sit down with Mike Kiota and we do what we're calling Monday Mailbag. So the subscribers to adfreeshows.com get to ask Gerald Brisco anything they want every other Monday. And in between, they get to ask Mike Kiota. Now, we do have Gerald Brisco coming up on the other side of this clip. But first, I want you to hear a clip from my conversation with Mike Kiota about the Montreal Screwjob. He revealed something that was supposed to happen that didn't happen, that I don't think enough people have spoken about. Let's hear from Mike Kiota over at adfreeshows.com right now. I feel strongly that saving money is important. You know, if it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com. Here's a fun one here from Nick Mills. What was the atmosphere like backstage at Survivor Series 97 and the aftermath?
97 in the aftermath.
Yeah, we're talking about the Montreal Screwjob, the whole Hebner
Montreal
thing.
Screwjob, yeah. It was very awkward. A lot of people were pissed. Taker was pissed, I remember. We were kind of upset because a lot of us liked Bret Hart. Liked him as he was a good family man. He didn't deserve to really go out like that. And he kind of knew something was happening that day. So, it was a very uncomfortable, because Bret was looking for Shawn for a long time back there. I remember going door to door. Taker was looking for Vince. Bret came out and seen Vince, and then he hit Vince, and it was chaos that night. It was chaos.
Was there any, from a referee perspective, was there any, blowback on Earl for what happened? I'm sure internally everybody had the discussion of, well, hey, what if that was you? What if you had that match and Vince pulled you aside before you went out? What would you do?
True. Well, I was supposed to come out on that match. I was sitting in a gorilla position, and Jerry Briscoe, I remember sitting there, and Owen Hart was sitting right behind me at that time. And I was supposed to go in. Earl was supposed to take a bump. I was supposed to go in and count 1, 2, maybe get a 2 count in there. And then Owen was going to be right behind me, pick me up by my back of my belt and my shirt and throw me through the ropes through the other side of the ring. Well, of course, that never happened. That if that was me, I don't know what I would have done. I really don't. It's because Bret came to me earlier that day and he asked me, have they talked to you? And I said, because I was involved in the match. I said, no, Bret, nobody said anything. Now, I remember me and Bret, we had a good relationship through Joey Morello when Joey Morello was one of my best friends. He was a referee as well. And that's who I started in the business with, and that's Gorilla Monsoon's son. So, and there was a time that Bret and Joey and we traveled together. They kept me out of the loop. I knew something was going on because I seen Jerry talking to Earl over in the side in the corner. I seen this. There was a lot of private conversations going on. I knew something was funny was going on. I didn't know how it was going to go down, but I knew something was going to go down. And then I witnessed it. But, it was just a very uncomfortable time at that time. It was just all, the whole career and what a good stand-up guy Bret was. There was times that, Shawn didn't want to drop the title to him.
Right.
In certain things, in certain situations. So it was just, Bret didn't feel like it was the time and place to drop the title to him. Didn't feel like he deserved it at the time, I believe. So, and Vince and the company was looking at it a different way and was thinking Shawn Michaels was the future of the company. And which they weren't wrong. So, Shawn did take the company to new levels that, last so many years, last 20 years of his career,
Right.
But, yeah, I don't know what I would have done. I can't really answer that question. I got to put food on my table. I felt the way Earl felt too as well. Because in this business, it's either you're told what to do, how to do it. And if you don't do it, if they don't get you next day, they'll get you the next week, they'll get you next month, or they'll get you next year, So
It's coming though.
It's coming. The heat will switch to you, believe me.
So there you go. A little extra nugget of information I don't think has really been out there from Mike Kiota over at adfreeshows.com. Every other week he does Monday mailbag there, and you can check that out at adfreeshows.com. Speaking of adfreeshows.com, Gerald Brisco is going to be next on the show. And let me tell you, when we first had this idea of doing a remix and speaking to a few other folks, because I knew I had this Kiota content, but that's really just a short clip. My original idea was, let's release this remix episode today and maybe get, 15, 20 minutes with Gerald Brisco. And that would be different enough for it to be worthwhile, for it to be a remix. Boy, we set a time, we wound up Mr. Brisco, and then we just clicked record. And he talked for 90 minutes. And it was almost like he was just looking to get it out there. He wanted to get this off his chest. And stay tuned to the end of this conversation. He says as much. You don't want to miss this. In great, painstaking detail, everything you could ever want to know about the Montreal Screwjob from someone who was in the room for everything. We'll welcome Mr. Brisco to the show on the other side of the break. Okay, boys and girls, now for something totally different as we're breaking down the Montreal Screwjob. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, one of Bruce Prichard's great friends. I don't know if you still claim him. Ladies and gentlemen, Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Gerald Brisco. How are you, Mr. Brisco?
Oh man, Billionaire Connie, man, I'm glad you're calling. Man, I'm so thrilled to be. I've worked with you billionaires, so I know exactly how you're talking, man. So I'm really thankful that you were able to fit me in here, but I'm a little disappointed in that introduction. The only thing you come up with me about is I'm friends with Bruce, allegedly. Let me say that, because everything in this interview we're going to do is all allegedly. I listen to Bruce Prichard, I listen to your other star, Jim Ross, and I listen to all these guys. Sometimes I think I wasn't even in Montreal. I think it was all just a figment of my imagination that I went through that stuff. So, the facts, if you want to hear the facts, call the man that was there. As Bruce Prichard said, I was there, and I was in the rooms with these guys. So, I listen on and I love Mark Calloway to death. Everybody had a different solution for what we did. And nobody knows the facts like I know them, and like Vince knows them, and like we were trying to come up with alternatives that we could do that day, and so I'm glad to share my side of the story finally.
Well, I'm excited too. We've never really heard your take. We've heard what Bruce said. Let's sort of start at the beginning. This story really breaks down as the legend goes that Vince approached Bret at Madison Square Garden in September. And that's, of course, the famous show in September of 97. The first time Raw is at MSG. We're going to see the debut of Cactus Jack. We're going to see Steve Austin get arrested after he gives Vince McMahon a stunner. It's a big night. But before you go on the air is when supposedly Vince meets with Bret and says, hey, I'm not going to be able to honor your contract. Were you aware that conversation was going to be happening, or did you find out about that after the fact?
No, absolutely. I was aware of it. Vince had, with WCW, printing money down there on Billionaire Teddy's, a printing machine down there, and Atlanta, a little bit south of you. It must grow on trees in that area there. But But he was making all these obscene and insane offers to our talent, and we had gotten into a situation where there was a little set through between Bret and Undertaker, because Undertaker had signed a deal and which made him the highest paid. Of course, Bret was champion. Bret felt like he should be the highest paid. So Vince really couldn't meet the deal, the dollar figure. So he went and he just extended it for almost I think it was a lifetime. I didn't even know it had a time limit on it. I thought it was a lifetime contract that he received from him. And so which equaled out to a hell of a lot more money than what he would have made, with all the money up front there. So, I was totally aware of the meeting, and I was aware of the results of it.
Well, so now we're in a spot where when this meeting happens in September and Bret is told, hey, I can't honor the contract. So if you want to go negotiate with WCW and see if you can get that same deal that you passed up on a year ago, by all means do. Now, what's weird is Bret is the current world champion at the time, and we're starting to build towards, of course, Survivor Series, and that's what we're going to get to. But were you concerned when you knew that the chairman was having this conversation with Bret and he was the champion? Did you think maybe he should have gotten the belt off him before he had that conversation?
That was brought up, but Vince in those days, and he probably still is. I mean, we build out a program that's lasting to a certain blow off, and that was built up. But Vince had taken Bret is such a professional that we didn't figure that there'd be any issues with it and everything. So I in hindsight, it's easy to look back and say, yeah, we should have taken it from him before we ever got in that situation. But we didn't, and it all came down to what it came down to.
So before we get there, I do want to ask about the whole idea of this relationship with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart becoming rather toxic. These guys are going back and forth, on the microphone, in front of the camera, and even behind the scenes. And I think there was a concern about maybe what the finish was going to be and how we navigate this with these two big personalities. And as the story goes, I think Jim Cornette has claimed that he was the one who said to Vince, well, you should just put Bret in the ring with Ken Shamrock and then he'll do business. Is that the way you remember it? That, hey, if we can't, maybe we can lead the horse to water, but we can't make him drink, but maybe Ken Shamrock could make him drink. Is that the way you remember hearing that?
Yeah, I remember hearing that, but I didn't really describe it the same. The whole thing was Bret, and I'm not speaking in Bret, but just from hearsay. I'm once again that word allegedly. Just from what I'd been hearing, Bret didn't want to drop the title. I mean, for some reason, and I just can't understand that issue. Several people were brought up. Shamrock, sure, Shamrock can take it, but Bret would know something was going on, and Undertaker, well, he could put me with him, and I'm sure he would have done it. He wouldn't have done it in Montreal, or he wouldn't have done it anywhere else. It would have taken him. I'm sure he would have, but that's not that wasn't the issue. The issue was Vince had a program built out, Cornette and all of Bruce and all those guys that were doing the creative at the time. My job at the time was handling the agents and handling the live shows and things like that. So I wasn't really in every TV creative meeting. They're right on that. I wasn't in a lot of those creative meetings, but I had, because we were running nightly house shows at the time, so I was daily talking to Vince, giving him house show reports and all that stuff, and he'd call me after we get a report. And I just digress a little bit from that. I remember Vince, when he was making that offer, and it was a complicated offer, and it was complicated for Bret to accept it, but it was a sweetheart deal on Bret's side. So I think he finally realized that and accepted it. But Cornette did offer different things, but that wasn't the program we had going. And Shamrock and Bret wouldn't have had the same buy rate as Bret and Shawn. So that was kind of a business decision too about switching opponents.
So let's talk about who knew and who didn't know. You know, as the story goes, you were asked to go talk to Shawn the night before and show him a thing or two in case he needed to protect himself. Is that a real story, or is that just a telephone, telegram, telewrestler?
Well, I heard JR say he didn't think it was possible, you know, and then JR's right. You can't teach a guy how to defend himself in a couple-hour session. I'm going to take you back. I'm going to start from the beginning. The night before on Saturday, on Friday before I left for Montreal, I left on Saturday, and we had our meeting, our pre-production meeting on Saturday. But on Sunday, on Friday, I think it was, I got a call from Vince, and Vince had gotten kind of word that Bret wasn't going to drop the title, and wanted to come up with deals. And I basically did the same thing everybody else did, suggested other people. That's not our program. You know, we can't do it. And then at the last minute, you know, if we'd slipped a ringer in there, Bret would have known what was going on and might have walked out of the ring. And as you've heard a million times, Vince's number one slogan, number one marching mantra is get the match in the ring.
Yep.
Do what you got to do, but get the match in the ring. And so that's what we were concerned about, is giving the people what they were paying for and actually giving the people what they wanted. So I made the trip up to Montreal, as we all did, for a pre-production meeting on Saturday night. There's the usual group of suspects in there from Vince, Kevin Dunn, the TV producer, and J.R. Cornette, Bruce, and all the agents that was working that show, Pat and everything. And Pat was assigned, as he usually was, the Bret and Shawn match, because Pat was a great negotiator with these two kids. They both had the utmost respect for Pat, so Pat usually handled that match. So we went through all the list of deals, and I thought we were going to be on video here too. So I even wore a Survivor Series shirt and have my run sheet from that particular Survivor Series. So we ran through all the deals, and we got to the last match. And everybody was kind of waited with the old bated breath, you know, to see exactly what we were going to do. And, you know, I didn't have time because Vince got to Montreal late, as he usually does. And by the way, I had to wait for another billionaire to get on this call and ran me 30 minutes late. But I'm used to dealing with you type of people there. So we had a production meeting. We got down to that last match. Last match, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels for the title. And so Vince looked at us, said, "To be determined, meeting adjourned." And we all kind of, wow, you know, what's going on? Well, you know, and of course, a couple of hands go up. I think mine do. Well, do we have any idea what we're doing? Yeah, but we need to run it by talent first. You know, it's just kind of. And Vince looked at me. By the way, Briscoe, do you mind staying a little bit after the meeting? I want to have a little talk with you. And I'm thinking, oh, wow. All of a sudden, you know, I start thinking, well, what the hell have I done? You know, I'm going to get fired. You know, I'm thinking the worst, because the boss wants to talk to me after a 3-hour production meeting. You know, what can it be? What did I do? You know, I'm thinking the world's worst, you know, that, you know, I've done something. And because of Bruce's influence on me, and got in trouble and going to get fired over it. So I'm sitting there thinking, everybody walks out of the room. So our conference room we had was a real big one of those hotel ballroom type deals, and it has a bathroom down the end. So Vince gets up after everybody leaves. There's 2 doors to it. He goes to one door, and I see him lock that damn door. He goes to the other door, I see him lock that door. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Are we going to get in a fight here too? I mean, I'm starting to wonder what he wants to do with me. I mean, it's a little different routine than what usually happens. Then there's a bathroom towards the back. He walks all the way to the back of the room, opens the bathroom door, looks in, closes it, just to look to see if anybody's there. And then finally he comes down and he sits down next to me. He said, "We have a situation here that I kind of filled you in a little bit on Friday night." He said, "We're going to have to take the belt off of Bret tonight, and we're going to have to do it our way." And I'm what exactly do you mean? He said, "He's not going to drop the title here in Canada." And so I'm like everybody else. I'm trying to come up with solutions because I've been thinking about it. We had Detroit coming a couple of days later, but the word had got out that Bret wasn't going to do it there because it was right across the river from Canada. Well, this isn't the first time, and this is a story here, Conrad, that you're getting an exclusive from, that this isn't the first time that Bret had refused to drop a title because his fans in Canada. We're over in Bahrain. Now, you know where Bahrain is? It's that little island right off Saudi Arabia, right? Okay. You know where it's at,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
So we're running an outdoor show there. It's kind of a bought show. We were doing, we were selling our shows to a lot of those sheiks over there back in those days. This is probably the summer before this happened, so it's the same year. So Bret, we'd had a tournament come down with Bret and Undertaker as the main event. And it wasn't a title match. It was just a Bahrain tournament. We had a Kuwaiti tournament. We had all these different tournaments when we go to those little countries over there. So Bret said, "I'm not going to drop the match here. I can't get beat here." And I'm thinking, man, we're in the middle of nowhere. And I said, "Bret, why aren't you? Why? It's the Undertaker." He said, "There's too many fans." And granted, there was a contingent of Canadian soldiers in attendance here. So he was right on that aspect. There was some Canadian soldiers, but most of the people were native people there. So it wasn't like it was overwhelming and maple flag flying everywhere.
Right.
So and we're 10,000 miles away from anywhere. And back in those days there was no social media or anything like that. So what the hell? So and this is early, so of course I made my phone call to Vince, and Vince said, "Just get the match into the ring," And Undertaker, I'd slipped the Undertaker when he came in. He kind of likes to know what he's going to do so he can start developing a game plan in his head during the course of the event there. And I've never told this story, like I said before, being there, Connie. This is the scoop for you. So after I talked to Vince, Vince said, "Talk to Taker, and you guys just get the match in the ring. Do what you got to do, but get it in the ring. Then, it's the last night of the tour, and then get the hell out and come on home. We'll deal with it then." So I go over to Taker, and I sit down and Taker, and I tell Taker, what's going on. And Taker, like, "You don't want to drop the title to me?" I said, "No. You don't want to drop it. There's too many Canadian fans there." And Taker looks at me with that face of Taker like and a look of shock, with those piercing eyes of his, and scared me to the bone. I said, "Well, what do you want to do? You can still get your hand raised. We'll do something." He said, "The hell with it. I'll just put him more." So that's the professional that Taker is. So I go to Bret, and I said, I approached Taker, Bret, and he's agreed to put you over. Well, he don't have to let me pin him. I said, "I put the sharpshooter on." I said, "Well, you're not going to put the sharpshooter on him. You're going to pin him, So we worked out a deal to get the match in the ring for VKM. So that was my first example of Bret, and this was really shocking. And then, like I said, I'm probably pissing people off, but, I just really couldn't understand Bret's attitude, because he grew up, of course, in a wrestling family. He grew up with his dad being a promoter in a territory that's in the middle of nowhere, just kind of like we were in that damn Bahrain Island there. You go to Calgary, that's a guy, you freeze to death, your car breaks down, the car freezes to death. It's a miserable place in the wintertime. It's a beautiful countryside, but it's a miserable place in the wintertime, as everybody knows. And so I just think back, what would Stu Hart had done, if his champion was leaving the territory and refused to put the next guy over? That's you basically killing your territory. So, to me, I had those same thoughts. Owning Georgia Championship Wrestling and Florida Championship Wrestling, I was thinking, man, what would happen? It'd kill your territory if somebody left like that. So, coming from a wrestling family, I could not understand that attitude. And I still can't to that day. That's the one thing that still puzzled me. And me and Bret are shaking hands, and we speak to each other, more social with each other. But, sometimes, you're just taught when you're brought up in the wrestling business, there's certain protocols, that's the new word you describe it, that when you get a belt, you're given that belt. You don't win nothing. And I think that's where sometimes Bret kind of lost focus of things. It was a work. He was given that belt. He was given that belt to carry it and enhance the prestige of the belt, which he did tremendously. No knock to Bret's work or his work ethic. He was one of the hardest workers in the ring and one of the finest workers in the ring. But that moment of lapse that he just started getting very selfish about himself, I just couldn't understand. So anyway, Vince and I started talking, and we threw out several alternatives, and every one of them Vince kind of vetoed. He won't go for that. He won't go for that. He won't go for that. So I can't even remember a lot of DQ or somebody running, whatever. We were coming up with alternatives. He said the bottom line is we're going to have to figure out a finish, and have the referee ring the bell. And he said, do you have any suggestions? And I know everybody in the moon, even including the man in the moon, has come up and said it was their ideal to put the sharpshooter on and have the referee ring the bell. I can't tell you how many people I've heard interviews say it was their suggestion. And an off key. Well, yeah, I was drinking with Vince, on a 300-mile road trip when it come up, 10 months before. And just put the sharpshooter on and make Bret give up. That we can do it that way. I've heard all these stories of them. But that never came up in our discussion until we started talking. And Bret, Bret was a great amateur wrestler in Canada, and Shawn had never really been physical in his life, and so we nixed all the deals and everything. So Vince said, well, Bret gets in about midnight tonight. I want you to go to his room, and I want you to show Bret something that will protect him. And like I said earlier in this conversation, Conrad, that you can't teach a guy to protect himself in a matter of hours. It's an attitude, number one, and it's a mindset. And Shawn did not have that mindset. I'm not saying he didn't have the athletic ability. I'm just saying, when you go to hurt somebody, you got to have a bone in your body that allows you to go that far with another person, especially in our business where you're so used to giving up your body to people and crushing them. And Shawn does not have that mean bone in his body. He's a nice guy, contrary to a lot of people's beliefs. And so I said, okay, I'll meet with Shawn and we'll come up with something and I'll let you know. And it was about 10:30 that time. So I went to the front desk, and and like I said, we didn't have cell phones where we could communicate with each other. So I left a note at the front desk that said, "Very important. When Shawn Michaels checks in, have him call me. I'll be at the bar, and have him call me and at the bar. Just ring the bar and let me know that he's there." And the guy said, "Okay." So a few hours later, so I go and I meet up with Brother Bruce and whoever else is in the bar, and we start drinking. So I get a phone call about midnight, 12:30, and it's Shawn. He said, "Hey, I just checked in. I'm up in my room, so-and-so number." He said, "Do you want to come up for a while?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be up there in a second." So I hung up. And, this is unusual for me to get a phone call, in a bar. And so Bruce looks at me, "Where are you going?" I said, I just got to do something. I just got a call. I got a call from home, and I got to go do something, but just making up an excuse. So I excused myself from the bar, and I went to Shawn's room. My mission with Shawn at that time, Conrad, was not to teach him anything, but was to find out what he knew, in case it got physical and got scary at the end of what we're doing. So we sat there, and he said, "We have any ideas?" I said, "The only thing I can come up with, Shawn, is you agree to whatever Bret wants to do to it. If he wants to kick out your finishing move, at 2 minutes into the match, you got to go for it. You just got to be very, very cooperative with him. You can't tip your hand in any way." But the only way I can think of that we can get him in a position, because he'll kick out on a cover. So no matter what you do to him, unless you knock him out with the ring belt or the belt, you're not going to cover him for a 3 count, because he'll kick out. So the only other way is to get a hold on him where we can do a submission. Well, Earl Hebner had been assigned the match. I've known Baby Earl since he was setting up the rings in Richmond, Virginia for Joe Murdoch and the Crockett's. So I'd known him all of his career. Had a pretty good relationship with the guy, and I consider him a friend. Him and Dave both were good friends of mine. So he was the key to it. He said, Bret and Earl are tight, and they were very, very tight. I mean, Bret took care of Earl all the time, moving him up to first class seats and all that stuff. And as the legend goes, and I wasn't on the flight, so I can't verify this story, but the night before, as they were flying to Montreal, they were finishing up, I think it was Detroit. They were finishing up that road to the pay-per-view. So Earl was sitting in the back of the plane. Of course, Bret sitting in the front of the plane. So Bret buys Earl a first-class seat so he could sit next to him. And on the plane, as the legend goes, and like I said, I can't verify this story because I wasn't there. And so that Bret, "Hey man, I'm a little worried about tomorrow. Can I have your word you won't screw me?" "Well, I swear on my kids," so the story goes, that Earl told Bret. So, they had that bond. So, but so we come up with Shawn Michaels and Bret had been having a series of matches. And during those series of matches, they both kicked out of each other finishing holds. So they already had a spot built into the match where that sharpshooter could go on. And so it was kind of easy from there. I said, well, this is what we're going to have to do. So he and I come up with the deal, And now my job is, I got that taken care of. Now my job is to, okay, we get to 1, 2, 3. Now, is Bret going to attack you and kill you, or is he going to attack, whoever, the referee and kill him? So I had to think about Shawn, what to do with Shawn. So Shawn said, "I can't teach you. I mean, I can sit here and I can go through the motions. I can teach you how to snap his knee." And Bret had everybody. It was a common fact. Bret had bad knees, so that was my focus. When you get in a fight, you look for the guy's weakest points, and I knew what Bret's weakest points were. It was his knees. He had no wheels on him. Like most wrestlers, your knees get shot. So I said, this is the way you can snap his knee. You got to do a leg scissor, get him down, or drop him any way that you can. Just, are you good at defending? I said, I'm gonna throw a couple of punches. I want to see you, how you bob and weave. Just the deal was more for Shawn's protection than it was to teach him anything. Because like I said, I'm a great coach. I'm first to admit I'm a great coach, but I can't teach a guy in 30 minutes how to do the thing effectively when somebody's resisting you and fighting for their lives. Bret is a tough son of a bitch, and I knew Shawn would be in trouble if there was a fight, because as good a worker as Shawn is, like I said before, I don't think he's mean enough. And that Shawn had a track record, as everybody knows, getting the hell beat out of him in Syracuse by a bunch of soldiers. And, he didn't have a very good win-loss record in actual shoot fighting, in other words. And so I was a little concerned about that. But now we have a game plan. So I finished the meeting. I went back to my room and I called Vince, and I told Vince, I said, I think we got something. And I kind of laid it out to Vince, and I said, Vince, I got to ask you a question. Now I'm a little, I'm old school Conrad. I was brought up for you to do the right thing in the business. This was weighing on me because this was something that, in my lifetime and in my career, I'd never seen done or never heard of it being done. And, doing research later, as all the research modes became available, I saw where there was a couple other, screw jobs like this. And I kind of relate back to 1973 when my brother was supposed to get the job belt from Dory Funk Jr., and it didn't happen. With strange circumstances. So I could relate to what was going on there. So anyway, I went back to the bar, and Bruce said, where the hell you been so long? I said, no, I just, like I said, I had a phone call, and so we started drinking, and I'm shocked at, because, Bruce likes to dig deep, when something different out of the ordinary, and this was totally different out of the ordinary. So we sat there and we finished drinking, closed the bar down, and we went our separate ways and went to our rooms, Got up the next morning, and so I asked because this is a fantastic weight where you, believe it or not, put on my shoulders, to do this, to go against what I was brought up to believe about this business my entire career and my brother's entire career. I was a little nervous about doing it, but I still had a job to do. And I was kind of thinking selfish too. Well, if Bret takes this title down there, we'd already been stung before, with Medusa and Lex and all these guys leaving, and Bret taking her title down. I didn't want to see that happen again because I had, 2 kids I have to feed too. And so, I knew that would hurt, and we were struggling. We weren't in the WWE wasn't in the best of financial shape at the time either. So we'd all already taken a huge pay cut. And so all this is weighing on your mind, and the moral aspect, whether it's right or wrong. And the more I thought about it, right or wrong, the more I thought about what would Stu Hart do if it was his territory. And some American was claiming, that close to the border, he couldn't drop the title. Well, Calgary's 100 and some odd miles away from the border. It's too close to the United States for me to drop a title. What would Stu do? I mean, he would probably done the same thing because it would have killed his territory if he'd let the guy take the belt. So my conscience started getting better, but I'm starting to think, when is the best time to approach Earl Hebner? Well, Hebners are great business guys. And so I kept putting it off, and all day long, Vince would walk by me. And then, and this is, like I said, is a heavy weight because I couldn't share this with Pat. I couldn't share it with Bruce. I couldn't share it with JR. I couldn't share it with any of my friends or anybody there, Jack Lanza, or anybody that I was close to. This is something I had to carry all day long. And every time I'd walk by and see Bret would kind of look at me, because Bret and I had a friendly working relationship, but we weren't really friends. We were just kind of, co-workers and acquaintances. So I didn't have that relationship that I have with Bruce and JR and Pat and those guys. So all day long, I'm trying to figure out when's the right time to talk to Earl. And so is Earl going to do it? Because I know his friendship with Bret. So I went to Vince and I said, Vince, I started doubting whether Earl would do it. And so I went to Vince and I said, Vince, I'm going to have to, because he made me swear I wouldn't tell anybody, too. He said, you have problems, so you're not going to share this with anybody. I said, well, who knows that I can talk to during the course of the day to try to get this off my chest? Kevin Dunn's the only other guy that knows what we're doing. Well, Kevin spends the day in the truck, so he's not a guy that you go out and talk to, because he's super busy, on a pay-per-view day, getting everything lined up. So I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to share, that bounce things off of. It was just me and my thoughts. So I said, well, I cannot do that. I cannot talk to Earl until he's ready to go to the ring. And so as the match is getting ready to go to the ring, Earl's getting ready to go in there, and I grabbed Earl by the arm there, and I took him just a few steps away from the gorilla position there where Bruce was sitting, and Davey Boy and Owen was there, so I couldn't talk to him right in front of them, because they would alert Bret somehow that Briscoe's talked to the referee, would be aware or something. So I took baby Earl back in a little corner, and Earl did not want to do it. Earl was not going to do it. And I just started out laying black and white to him. Earl, you have a mortgage on your house, right? If Bret takes this title down there, and like I said, we're not in the greatest shape of financial anyway, we being WWF, we're not the greatest financial shape. Is he going to pay your mortgage when it comes to it? Is he going to pay your electric bill? Is he going to feed your family? When he takes off and he's down there making, billions of dollars, what's going to happen to you if you refuse to do this and I got to replace you? I'd gone to Timmy White and asked Timmy to stand by just in case that I told Timmy we might have a ref bump, so I might need you to stand by. And that's kind of how I covered with Timmy, to be on standby to referee the match just in case something happened. And Timmy, of course, being a company man, Timmy said, yeah, I'll be glad to, And he said, I hope nothing happens. And I said, well, I do too, but, I might need you as a standby. So Timmy was sitting over by Gorilla too, waiting, see if he's going to have to go. So finally, I just got down to brass tacks with Earl. I said, okay, Earl, you got to go to the damn ring. You got to tell me right now. I got Timmy White over there. That'll take your place. If you refuse to do it and you walk out, you're probably finished here. Now, is Bret going to take you to WCW with you and get you a job down there? I doubt it. I doubt if he'll take you down there. So you're kind of going to be out of the business as far as, making major money with a major organization. He looks at me and he said, Briscoe, I wouldn't do this for any other guy but you. And he said, it's against my judgment. I said, it's against my judgment too, but it's the only choice that we have at this time, Earl. So you going to do it or not? We got to go ahead. He said, I'll do it. And I said, as soon as you do that 1, 2, 3, and you'll know, I want you to grab the belt, hand it to Shawn, and just get the hell out of there. Get out of that arena as quickly and as fast as you possibly can. So I know you're not familiar with Montreal Maple Leaf Garden, but
no.
The arena is the floor above the parking deal, and it's a pain in the ass to get to the parking deal. You got to wait for this freight elevator. You've been on freight. Everybody's been on freight elevator, and they take forever to do it. But there's a set of stairs that you can they're winding stairs. You can go down that one floor and be down there in a second. So during the course of the match, I went to Dave Hebner. I said, Dave, you got the car, right? I said, yeah. I said, go ahead and grab your brother's bag because there's going to be a real hot finish. That's, and that's the referee, I told you guys, says it's going to be a hot finish. So I want Earl out of this building. And you got to go down those steps and you got to get out quick. And as you're going out, there's a little driveway, a little ramp that goes up out of the building onto the street. Well, normally, as you know, both sides of that street is just packed by fans, and they're beating on your car hard at you and everything like that. So I want you guys out of here in case it gets really, really steamy out there. And he said no problem. So he grabbed Earl's bag and he went down. He had the car all turned around, pulled out because it's a cluster down there trying to get your car out even. So he went down and got the car ready. So the match takes place. So we get to the point in the match. Vince decide. I tell Vince exactly how we're gonna set this thing up, how it's set up. I mean, and Pat and I had met with Brett and Shawn the entire day, working out this match, and they had a little finish figured out, DQ or whatever it was, and a little smiles, Pat Patterson smiles at the end of it. So here it comes. So Vince decides, this was not an original plan, for Vince to go out, but it worked out very good to show you how bright Vince was in a big picture after I laid it out to him what we were going to do. And so, just to have a fail safe there, for somebody else to ring the bell, in that situation. And so we got into the course of the match, and if you watch that match, you could see the coloration of Earl Hebner is just snow white. It's not the usual face of Hebner in that match. Hebner's usually, he's so professional, he's so relaxed out there. You can't tell, but watching and knowing and rewatching it, you can kind of see Hebner's body language that, something was coming down. Excuse me. So anyway, we were getting the course of the match, and here comes the sharpshooter. Ding, ding, ding. Ring the bell, ring the bell. As soon as he puts the sharpshooter on, as they turn him over, Brett's kind of, when you get turned over in a match, you still got to have your balance, even though you're on your belly. And Brett puts his hands down to kind of stabilize his balance from turning all the way over. As soon as that hand goes down, Hebner kind of looks over and kind of gestures. He doesn't really gesture, but Vince takes the signal and hollers, ring the bell. So they ring the bell. So, man, they let go of that deal. So you can watch Hebner. Hebner grabbed that belt. He gives it to Shawn, and he's gone. He's disappeared. He's down those stairs. He's out the building. He's gone. He's safe. So now my concern is getting Shawn Michaels out of there. I'm at ringside just in case I got to go in and help Shawn. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I ain't going to be on the losing end of it, and I'll tell you that much. So I knew I might have to do something. So I grabbed Shawn as soon as he gets awarded the deal, and I completely forget about Vince because my main focus is getting Shawn to safety. Because Davey and Owen is now in the ring with Bret, so I know he's okay to go out. So he's going out. As we're walking out, somebody asked me one time, "What'd you say to Shawn on the way out?" Because the video showed me saying something to Shawn. As you know, fans, when they get disgusted, especially up there in that damn Montreal, they tend to throw stuff on you. I mean, them bottles, you don't know what it's urine and you don't know what it is, but they'll throw stuff on you, spit on you, everything. Shawn's walking out and he got that belt by, and I said, so everybody said, "What did you say to Shawn?" Well, after Shawn put that on old school, of course, I was always taught when you get heat, put something over your head as you're hitting those exits because you don't know what they're throwing at you. So I said, "Shawn, put the belt over your head." It wasn't a gloat or anything like that. It was just for his total protection.
Yeah.
So I get Shawn in the back and I pass him off to Hunter. So Hunter takes him down to the dressing room. And now my concern is, okay, I'm out there. Vince is out there. Well, I know Sarge is out there, and Sarge is a pretty salty guy. I know he's in good shape, but I still need to be out here. Gria's out there and just to kind of direct traffic because he was excellent at doing. So I go out and we finally got, the spit has already happened, and now Bret's going in his hand room, tearing everything. So I grab Vince, we go to the back. JR and King has already vacated. Once Bret heads over by them, starts throwing stuff, they vacate. We have a dressing room back in the back. We've been Vince has it's a little cubicle off to the side there, with basically two dressing rooms that are like adjoining rooms, and so JR in one of them, and we're all getting the back. Finally, I get Vince back there, and I go and I lock all the doors. Well, I see Taker walking down the hallway towards Vince's office, but I lock all the damn doors. Because I don't know the guy's attitude at that time, because we'd just done something that hadn't been done in the business in a long time. So we're in there, and Vince and I, and to Vince's credit, I mean, he could foresee a lot of stuff that my mind wasn't broad enough to see, because I was focused on what I was assigned to do. But we had talked the night before, the repercussions, you're going to have to address. We'd already knew we were going to have to address the crew after what happened, the ones of it. And to show you how smooth this thing went, Conrad, during the course of the match, you weren't required to stay, because the next day was Ottawa. We had a long ass drive, 4-hour drive to Ottawa the next day. So, a lot of the guys had already left the dressing room, so it was just basically friends of Bret and family of Bret and Shawn's group that was still around. And so like I said, I passed Shawn off to Triple H, went out and got Vince, and I took Vince, and JR was already in the dressing room, so I locked the door even until I heard the Undertaker pounding on the door, let me in. That Mark will be out in a little bit. And I need to talk to Vince. I said, I know, we all do. So I said, well, I promise you we'll be out in a minute. So he turned around. He goes back to the main locker room, because he's going to police the locker room, because Shawn is sitting in the same dressing room with Bret. They were dressing in the same damn dressing room. Okay, what are we going to do? And I told JR, I said, you go in that back room there, Vince's room, there's a bathroom in there that you can lock. I said, go in there and lock the door, and you don't unlock these doors for anybody. As soon as we step out of this room, I want you to lock the doors and don't open for anybody. I don't care who it is, the police or anybody. Make them break down the damn door, but don't unlock the door. I don't want you. I didn't want JR involved, because JR was head of talent.
Yep.
JR did not have an ounce of knowledge on what was going on. So I wanted to dispel that rumor that JR knew. He's head of talent, but he didn't have an eye. Nobody knew except Kevin Dunn and Triple H, myself, and Vince. And so nobody knew. So JR said, okay, he was scared to death, and I don't blame him, because, the finger's going to be pointing towards JR, because he's had a talent relations, So I tell Bruce, there might be trouble there. And, Bruce, big old Bruce, he likes to wear those fancy Rolex watches. And I said, Bruce, we're going to go to the back. We're going to face Bret. And he said, do you think of trouble? I said, there very well could be. So he don't want his Rolex. That's the most valuable thing that he wears on him. So he takes off his Rolex, and he walks over, puts it in his bag. And as we go out the room now, it's me, Bruce, and Vince. We're headed to back to the dressing room for the showdown now. Now we're to the showdown. Now, do you have anything you want to ask me? I know I'm long-winded.
No, listen.
We can pick.
This is great stuff.
Later.
Keep doing your thing.
Okay, so anyway, I had JR, as soon as we walk out the door, I have JR lock himself in the dressing room. Of course, people are pounding on the door wanting in. Everybody comes to the door wanting in. So Bret had come to Vince, and we wasn't opening the door for Bret at that time. We wanted him to go to the locker room first. And so So as we go out, Taker's standing there, and he said, "Vince, you need to go down and talk to her." Well, Vince and I talked about, the repercussion. We spit in face, and I didn't think Bret would hit Vince. And I said, Vince, there's a possibility that he's gonna hit you. And I said, you can't fight back. You just got to stand there like a man, and you got to take a punch. You got to take one for the team, so to say. You got to. He said, I don't know if I can do that. And I said, well, you got no choice, Vince. You got to just stand there and let the guy throw his best punch on you. And he kind of shook his head. He said, okay. But okay, now here's another wild card that my old feeble mind had to overlook. Shane O. McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been around Shane. He's a wild card. You talk about a loose cannon. Pillman had nothing on that. On Shane McMahon. I mean, and they're standing there and seeing your dad getting cussed out. Like nobody ever done before. How's Shane O gonna react to this thing? Is he gonna want to fight Bret? Most likely he would have. So I took the biggest guy I had, which was Sergeant Slaughter. I said, Sarge, your deal is to stand right next to Shane-O, and if he starts even flinching, you grab him by the waist and you get him the hell out of there, because we can't allow it to happen. So Vince was prepared to take a punch. This is the part that I'm gonna piss people off, and I'm gonna upset Bret after all of our good deals. So Sarge agrees to babysit Shane-O for me. So it's basically me, Vince, and Bruce kind of standing there in a little semicircle to ourselves while Bret is getting ready to go to the shower. Of course, when we come in, Taker ushered everybody, and I appreciate that from Taker. And he wasn't asked to do it, or it's just instinct with him. But he told everybody, get the hell out of the dressing room, including Shamrock, I think, and a couple other pretty tough guys. Get the hell out of here. This is private. I mean, nobody that's not involved that needs to be here. Davey and Owen, of course, were left in there, and Hunter and Shawn, of course, were there. And when we walked in, Bret and Shawn were actually talking, and as soon as Bret saw Vince, of course, his attention went on him, and he started cussing Vince out, telling Vince off, and he said, I'm going to go in the shower, I'm going to shower off, and if you're still in here, when I get out of here, I'm going to knock the hell out of you. And so, well, okay. So now Shane, I look over Shane, and he's starting to bow up, and I kind of give the nod to Sarge, kind of get in front of him and hold him back. So Bret goes in the shower. While Bret is showering, Vince is explaining to the other talent in the room exactly what went down and why it had to go down like it did. Well, sure enough, Bret got out of the shower. He dried off. I mean, it's just kind of like watching a movie being filmed here. So, you're waiting for the big showdown, the shootout at high noon, and it's getting ready to come, and the town is anticipating it. So, everybody's feathers are kind of rumpled up and, getting ready to choose sides. Who's gonna do what. So, and you got to give it to Vince, and this is where I get pissed off when I hear Bret's description of it. I mean, he come over and he told Vince, I told you if you're still here when I got out of the shower, I'm going to knock the hell out of you. I'll give you one more chance to leave. And Vince said, Bret, I'm sorry it had to happen like this, but it happened at that time. Vince's hands were down at his side. Here's a man, 13 years older than this world-class athlete, and standing there facing him, with his head up and not trying to cower out of anything. And Bret said, Vince, I'm going to punch the hell out of it. And Bret threw one of these punches. It was a big roundhouse, and he said there was a group of guys, but like I said, it was only Bruce and I, and neither one of us trying to block the punch, because Vince had told me he was willing to take it, but that take one was all he was going to take, and that's really all it took. So Bret reared back, and he punched Vince, and Vince went down, and Bret, in fact, likes to brag, well, hell, I punched him, and I punched his lights out. He went down like a sack of potatoes. Well, you know what, Conrad, you could punch me if I'm standing there with my hands to my side, and nail it and hit me with a good punch without me trying to defend it or turning my head or anything like that to lessen the blow. But Vince took it head on, and he went down. Vince wasn't out cold, but he went down like a tree with a chainsaw. I mean, he would flop. And in those hockey dressing rooms, they have those damn pallets there that are hard, unless you're in skates, are hard to walk on, and you move pretty quick unless you hit the board on those pallets, you're going to fall through and turn. This is the funny part of it. Vince still blames it for me today. Vince had a knee operation a few years later. It was from that. It was from the scrum after he went down. Of course, Vince said, "I'll take one punch." So I was, as soon as Vince hit that floor, I was on top of him, covering him, because I wasn't going to let Bret get a second punch in. There's no way in hell I was going to let him get a second punch in. And so I grabbed Vince and I kind of pushed Bret off to the side there as well as I could, along with everybody else that was standing there. We could, just get Bret away, get some distance there. He had already done his damage, so we got up, and Vince was in La La Land. I mean, he was, his eyes were spinning around. He'd been punched in the temple, and like I said, he's 11, 13 years older than Bret, and he went down. Bret did throw a damn good punch, but he threw it. That's like shooting an unarmed man, as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't a sucker punch because he knew it was coming. So, but it was an undefended punch, and Vince went down. Bret is 100% right on that. But if you can't knock a man down, with your best punch when it's uncontested, then you're not very strong. But Bret showed he was strong. So we get Vince up, and he's kind of and overcome Shane. By now, Shane has joined it. We're helping. Because we didn't know if Davey Boy and Owen were going to get into that scrum and start punching and kicking. So they did. And it was between Bret and Vince, and I left it at that, and the guys I had protecting Vince left it at that. So this was something that we anticipated, and it's something Vince told me, that night. He said, if I get punched, only allow one punch. So I gave him my word. That's all I was going to allow, and that's all I would have allowed, So we gave him his payback there. He punched Vince out. So we got Vince out. Now we got to make this walk from the dressing room, which Connie is all the way at one end of Maple Leaf Garden. We had to walk out the door. By then, the hallway is lined with all of Bret's entire family. We're getting spit on. We're getting cussed out. I mean, we're getting everything. And I got to give Taker some more credit here. He kind of calmed the masses down. The people with the pitchforks and lanterns getting ready to take us to the big oak tree out back there. He was pushing them out, kind of cleared a path, and we went back to Vince's locker room. We kind of doctored Vince and what we had to doctor him up with, and he had a big lump on the side of his head where Bret had cocked him, and we got to get in the car and we got to drive out of that damn building where these hostile people are waiting on us, over to the Marriott Hotel, which is about 2 blocks away from us, where we are all staying there. So, that night, we're sitting in a limousine. It's Vince, myself, JR, and all this time, people are pounding on JR's dressing room. We wasn't letting them in. We hadn't even had trouble. JR, it's me. Open the damn door. Okay. Give me a password. Boomer Sooner or something like that. I don't know. That's bullshit there. I just thought JR like that. So anyway, he lets us in. We go in. We doctor him. Now we got to get in that limousine. So people know we're the only people. Vince is the only one that's got a limousine. So we're going out of at damn arena. And like I was describing with hemorrhage, to get hemorrhage out, you got to go down that ramp and then go up that ramp, and you're on the main street, and you turn to the left for the hotel. So, but the people were lined for blocks and blocks and all the way to the hotel. People were lying in the streets. We had no police escort. We didn't have, nowadays we would have, the entire Montreal Canadian mounted police there, guarding the streets for us. But back in that time, we didn't have the power and we didn't have the money. So it was just us in that limousine and the fans, and they're trying to turn over. They're trying to break the limousine windows. They're trying to turn the damn limousine over. Finally, we get to the Marriott where there is some security there. So they kind of clear a path for us. Of course, we'd already been checked in the night before, so we all go to a room. I don't like to say run to a room. We all go to a room. You listen to the cuss words, ducking the spit, ducking the water bottles, and everything else that's throwing at us. We go upstairs. Well, Shane McMahon called me, and I think it's wise if we don't go to the bar tonight. And I'm saying, really, Shane? I'm leaving my damn room, Even when I called room service, Vince called me. He said, "You hungry?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm gonna order room service." I said, "How you feeling?" And he said, "Man, my head hurts. I can't." I said, "Vince, you took a hell of a bump." And I said, "You all right? You need us to call a doctor or anything? Check you out?" "No, man, I'll be all right. See you in Ottawa in the morning." So anyway, Shane calls and said, "I advise everybody not to go out, and their to the bar tonight, or go out of the hotel because it's pretty hostile out there." So, of course, I know that, so I didn't plan on going anywhere. So, I call the desk, because my phone is ringing off the damn hook. I mean, just ringing off the hook. So I called the desk, and I said, "Hey, only calls I'm taking right now is from Vince McMahon, and that's it. Anybody else call my room, I'm checked out. I'm not here." So they said, "Okay." So my room service came, and believe me, when that room service come, I did look through that Pico to make sure it was the room service guy. So I let him in. So I ate dinner in the room, and like I said, I wasn't taking any calls. And me and JR and Bruce and Pat, this is pre-jet days and pre-corporate limos and all that bullshit that they have now. So we're having to drive a 3-hour drive over to Ottawa. So that's kind of, and that was an interesting story too. I can go on, but I think I've used up my allotted time. But
no, man, listen, we appreciate this context. You've never really told your story, not into this detail. I do want to ask, you were really close with Pat Patterson. Obviously he was really close with both Bret and Shawn. He did not know, you did know. Did it affect y'all's friendship? Was he upset with you?
Well, I'm going to get into that with part 2 here coming up, if you'll allow me a couple extra minutes.
Sure. Please do.
No. All right. So now the next morning, we still got a job to do. We got to film day 2 of TV, Actually, day 1 of TV, we just did a pay-per-view. So we had to film another day of TV, and that's a 3-hour drive. There's 4 of us in the car, and the 4 of us in the car, only one knew the story, the whole story, what was going on, and that was me. So I'm keeping my mouth shut. I think that day, for some reason, Bruce is the world's most horrible driver, as you probably know.
Yep.
He's driving. JR sitting next to him, me and Pat are in the back seat. So we get in the car, not a word. Is that we set the standard time like we do every trip. Okay, meet down in the lobby at such and such time. Well, we instead of leaving regular time, we elected to leave about a half hour early, just break the routine, just in case there's trouble down there and there would be less people there. So we met down there about a half hour early. We skipped breakfast, didn't go to breakfast or anything like that. So we're headed out of town. And Connie, I got to tell you, man, that we get in that car and it's like you're at a funeral service. There isn't a breath or a word uttered. You know, everybody's kind of just holding their breath to see who's going to be the first one who says anything. Nobody's saying a thing. Everybody's kind of, So we were getting out, as you know, up in Canada, they got a great place called Tim Horner's. We all like Tim Horner's. I love their bear claws. Have you ever tried a Tim Horner bear claw?
I have not. We don't have those in Alabama.
Well, we don't have them in Florida, but if you ever wander, venture, and you see a Tim Horner, you got to eat yourself a bear claw. You'll probably have them flown down every holiday for you. So anyway, I said, hey, man, let's pull over and get Tim Horner's, and I don't drink coffee. And I said, you get a Tim Horner's, and I get a Diet Coke. Nobody said a damn word. It's like silence in a word. So we pull over. We go in Tim Horner's. I get my bear claw, I get my Diet Coke, and Bruce gets his Diet Coke and 3 or 4 bear claws. JR gets his coffee, and Pat gets his coffee, and we go back and we get in the car. We're about an hour into the trip. Still nobody said a damn word. And finally, JR speaks up. I didn't know nothing about this stuff. Did you guys know? And Pat looked, well, I did the match, and Pat's the French accent, and I didn't know nothing. I'm so pissed off. I'm so hurt. I didn't know nothing. How can I even face Bret or Shawn on this thing? Going into just raving. Hey, look at Bruce. Bruce said, I know nothing. And now it comes my turn to fess up. These are my ever-loving best friends, kind of, that I'm riding with, And my mama raised me to tell the truth, so it got to my turn, and I said, hey, Briscoe, did you know? I said, I got to admit, I knew. And, well, boy, when I said that, I thought I was in the old Coliseum where they just let the lions out, to devour the gladiators out in the Coliseum floor there. And so the question started, well, why didn't you tell? Hey, man, I couldn't, I couldn't tell anybody. And I think JR was hurt more and he was pissed off at me. Of course, Bruce was pissed off because, as you know, Bruce got to know everything or it don't happen, unless Bruce knows it, And Pat was just heartbroken that he didn't know, because it was his match. And I had asked Vince the night before. I'll digress a little bit. I asked Vince the night, Vince, why are you asking me to do this? And he looked at me right in the eyes. He said, Gerald, you're the only one I can trust to do it 100%. I can't go to Pat. Even though I trust Pat with everything, Pat would break under the pressure because he's such good friends with Bret. And he wouldn't want any heat with Bret, so he would crack under the pressure. And so, and he said, JR's had a talent. I don't want him. Vince was protecting JR.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want JR to do it because he's had a talent, and I don't want all the heat on him. He said, I know you can handle the heat, and I know you'll get it done the right way. And that kind of gave me the confidence to do it the right way. So I kind of explained, I said, if you guys remember, after the production meeting, Vince asked me to stay. And Bruce said, I thought that was kind of weird. And he said, oh, by the way, where did you go at midnight? And I said, I went to Shawn's room to talk to Shawn about what we were going to do tonight. And you came back and you didn't tell me nothing. I said, Bruce, I couldn't. Vince asked me not to tell anybody, and there's something that I didn't think needed to be told in a bar room setting. We're in a bar drinking. And you told me, we could have come to my room. I said, Bruce, I asked not to share it with anybody. And it's something that I didn't want to get out because if the leak had been my fault and I probably lost my job. And I said, I just wasn't going to tell anybody. So now they're all three of them are pissed off at me. And now it goes to silence again. So we're getting close to Ottawa. We're getting ready to pull up in the Ottawa building. And JR says something to start the conversation. Well, facing this town, it's going to be brutal. And as soon as we walked in, we got word that, of course, Mick Foley wasn't going to come to TV. And several others that had threatened not to come to TV. And but being professionals, everybody showed up. And I'm not saying Mick's not a professional because he was doing what he thought was the right thing to do, and I can't never blame anybody for doing what they feel is the right thing. So So it all was forgiven with Mick. So we just wanted him back. So we Vince. I think it was Taker that came to Vince and said, Vince, you're going to have a meeting with the entire talent roster that's here for TV today. And at that time, everybody came to all the TV. So we had the meeting. Of course, Bret is gone. So, and the meeting, so I'm it's to the talent too. So Vince gets up there. Vince calls me into his office in Ottawa and says, hey, I got to get up and I got to tell him the plan. He said, I can or I cannot use your name. It's up to you. Do you want me to say that you're the one that? I said, Vince, do whatever you have to do at the business, and I got I sooner or later I'm gonna have to face it. And I'd rather it come from you than come from me. Like I'm trying to jump on the bandwagon of what happened there. So he got up in the meeting and he kind of laid out the whole thing, why it had to happen. Bret we didn't want another incident where we're losing the championship belt and it gets thrown in the garbage, which I highly doubt that Bret would do something like that, throw the belt, because he got too much of an ego and too much pride to kind of throw the damn thing away. So we had to do and I couldn't have done any of this if it hadn't been for Gerald Brisco. And all of a sudden, every eyeball in the room turned back and looked at me, And you know what, Connie? I just took wow, it's out now. So I walked out of the room immediately, and I to this day, I just owe these guys so much. The only two guys that really walked out with me, kind of stay around me, was Triple H and Kevin Nash. They both were like stuck to me like glue. And I gotta admit, I emotionally broke down when I got out of that room.
Wait, who else was there? Kevin Nash was in WCW at the time, so it was Hunter and who else?
Okay. What? Shawn.
Yeah.
Kevin was gone. It was Hunter and Shawn. They walked out with me, and I was so emotional. I broke down. I mean, I bawled for like 2 minutes. I mean, it was just that much, emotion and nervousness and just anticipation built up into me just to get it out. I felt so much better. And those two guys, I got to tell them, man, they stuck by my side all day long, because after it was out, of course, they're not going to pick on Vince. They're not going to jump on Vince, for something. It's going to be me. It's going to be my fault, And Bret had a lot of friends, as you know. And so, but they stuck with me, and I made sure I made it through the day okay. And I never will forget, the help that Paul and Shawn gave me that day emotionally, and just knowing that they were at my side and watching out after me, because I didn't know. I mean, I can certainly take care of myself, but 2 or 3 guys jump you never know what's going to happen, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So that's kind of the day, and the day went through. It was a stressful day, and that night, the 4 of us got in the car and went. We're flying out of Ottawa, so we didn't make the trip back to Montreal. So we were able to finally, have a beer and sit down and kind of. We never did laugh about it or joke about it, but we were able to kind of. The 4 of us were kind of able to come back together and kind of see each other's point of view, and then they were able to see why I had to keep it close to my vest for that 36, 48 hours. It was one of the most stressful times in my life, but I gotta admit it. The boss took care of me on that payoff. I was nearly choked in my seat when I opened up that envelope and saw the number of zeros on my check. So, but it was. I thought I earned every penny of it, to tell you the truth. But I called him and I thanked him, and he thanked me again. And he said, we'll forever be blamed for changing business. I said, man, we did the right thing, And the first thing I did when I got home was to go straight to my brother. And because by then, the body shop number was pretty well known, with the, Briscoe Brothers Body Shop shirt that I wore all the time. That was the actual body shop number. So people were calling the body shop. My partner wanted to know because the phone was blowing up, and we were getting called. Even people answering the phone at the body shop were getting called every name in the book, and some of them they couldn't understand because they were French accents, so they knew they were coming from Canada. So about a week there, we were harassed at the shop just unmercifully. And my partner Travis, he was pretty upset. Taking care of business, and somebody called, they don't want to talk to the manager. You don't trust those damn Briscoes. They'll screw you just like they did that Screw Hart. You're a bunch of assholes. Hang up on him. So it was a pretty hectic time, even for a week or so afterwards. But things started calming down, after a while, and after we got back in a routine. But it wasn't a walk in the park, to say. It was a walk through hell for like 48 hours.
When did you finally get to talk to Bret and y'all bury the hatchet? I'm sure it was years later, but how did that happen?
Oh, well, what I understand now, because, on the way out, I stopped. We were carrying Vince out, and I stopped. I kind of glanced over my shoulder, turned and looked at Bret just to make sure that he didn't have a chair or something like that in his hand coming toward us, to finish us off. And we made eye contact right then. He said, "Briscoe, you son of a bitch, you're next." And I'm thinking, well, come on, and there were no steps taken toward me, so I turned back and walked grabbed Vince's arm and walked Vince out, keep him stable. So it was years and years and years. It would, Bret, the first time Bret showed up was right the Hall of Fame when he got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. You'll have to help on that. We didn't talk that whole weekend, not that whole weekend. It wasn't until the second time that he showed up, and I'm sorry, I can't put a date on that. I use my age as an excuse, but I can't. But the second time he showed up, I finally, I've had enough of this, walking in fear. If he's going to bust me out. And to tell you the truth, I was kind of hoping he'd see me in an airport, didn't nail me, because I would have sued him for all that damn WCW money.
So when you finally get to talk to him, how did it go?
Well, when we finally, it was the second time he showed up, and I think he had had enough of the carrying that kind of hatred around is a heavy load to carry for anybody. And he'd kind of made his amends with Vince, and even with Shawn. It was a deal at the time when he made his amends with Shawn. After the show, I walked over to him and I stuck my hand out and I said, "You can shake it if you want to, Bret, but I want to shake your hand and just say, hey man, we all did what we had to do. We all did what the boss wanted us to do. So I'm sorry. I was doing my job just like you thought you were doing your job. I'm sorry." He looked up at me and he half-heartedly shook my hand. And, that was kind of it until a few years after that, when he came, I think, to Orlando for WrestleMania or something. And we were kind of stuck in a line somewhere. And I just turned and he was with his wife, so I knew he'd be, semi-polite to me. And so I kind of turned to him. Hell, we got to wait in line. Don't tell them they know who you are. And he kind of chuckled at it. We started laughing, and it kind of broke the ice. And we're not best of friends. We don't have to call each other. We don't exchange Christmas cards or anything like that. But I like to think, it's behind both of us, and we can see. We never ever said, he never really said he forgive me or anything like that. But just his body language wasn't as stiff and as angry toward me as it had been in the past, and I could kind of tell that, it was over as far as the way he viewed me about it. And, and like I said, man, we're just doing our jobs.
Of course, it's been a long time. Next year will be the 25th anniversary of this. If you had it to do over again, what would you do anything differently, or would it happen the exact same way, do you think?
Well, if the situation was exactly the same way, I don't think we'd have any choice but to do it the same way. I mean, we all look at, well, we should have done it earlier. We should have done it, as soon as Vince said, I can't do the contract, the belt should have come off of him at that time there, and hindsight. And, like all these people on these podcasts, and two of them on your network say, it could have been avoided. It couldn't have been avoided unless Bret Hart himself wanted it to be avoided, and him taking that stance. And that's, and I'll say it again, that's one thing I've never understood, is how he would have felt if it had happened to in his dad's territory, with one of the top talent there, And so, but I respect Bret. I think Bret was a great champion. I think Bret was a great asset to our business. I think Bret was a great person to have carry that title during the time that our business was not doing good. He gave a real legitimacy to the title, and he protected it like it was real, and it's real, but you know what I mean, like an Olympic gold medal or something like that. He took a lot of pride being a champion. But Bret wasn't the perfect employee either. I mean, he'll tell you, he'd show up at work when he wanted to show up. You'd have meet and greets planned, and the champion, even from the Hogans to the Warriors to the Savages to everybody else, they were always there to do meet and greets. And then when you set up a meet and greet with Bret, you had to worry if he was going to be there on time, even when the show started, let alone to do a meet and greet. So he wasn't the greatest, in lines of that, but when it came to that bell ringing and him going to the ring, he's right up there with the top. I'm not going to say he's best there ever was, but he's right up there in that top and of the totem pole.
Well, boys and girls, we greatly appreciate the time today, with Mr. Briscoe. And if you enjoyed this as much as I did, I feel like we should mention you're doing this on a pretty regular basis, telling these old stories, and you've got a tag team partner. Tell us about it.
Well, thank you, Billionaire Connie, for allowing me to tell this. You've been trying to take you've been throwing at Eric Bischoff. Well, what's Eric Bischoff got that Layfield and I don't have? Besides probably 100,000 more followers. But we're getting there. But me and poor old John Layfield Bradshaw, or whatever the hell, JBL, we're starting a little road story with Briscoe and Bradshaw. They're entertaining. We're not out to bury anybody. We tell our guests, hey man, if you want to shoot against somebody, I hate that word shoot interview. If I got to shoot with somebody, it's not verbal and it's not long distance. I'm going to shoot with them face to face. So we're not looking for dirt. We're not looking for hatred. All we're looking for is to entertain our few listeners that we have out there with entertaining legendary road stories that like Stan Hansen running over the damn AWA championship belt with a John Deere tractor. Hell, Grandma got run over by a tractor, but Bird's championship belt got run over by a John Deere, so they got that reindeer beat there. So I got your beat ready. But we just tell funny stories and good old road stories, dressing room stories, and we've got a list of who's who on our YouTube channel. I mean, it's our Hall of Fame, and what makes this so good? We get our guests on there that we're not only fans of, and JBL and I, a lot of people think if you're in that business, you're not a fan, but we all have our favorites, and we're our fans. JBL and I come up in the old school system, and all of our guests we have on. Not only are we friends with them, but we were fans of their work. And every one of them has a legendary story that needs to be told. And they're funny stories, and we try to tell them, and we try to leave our audience with a smile on their face and a good time. And we appreciate all the help that you've given us and all the exposure that you're giving us. But being there, Connie, JBL and I aren't afraid.
Well, man, I'm not afraid to hit the subscribe button. I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing. Check it out. Briscoe and Bradshaw, this stories is taking over, man. You can check it out on YouTube, and we'll, of course, link it in the description of this show. We greatly appreciate your time today, man. I don't know what I expected, but dude, that was quite a story, and a story from a version or an angle to the story we'd never heard. I don't think you've ever sort of spilled the beans like this in one sitting like this ever before.
Well, you're exactly right. You know, and when one of your stooges, Stooge Dave Silva, called me, he's number one. He's the Patterson of your stooges there. I think, you know, he's not the Gerald Brisco because he's a Texan. You know,
right? Of course, you would never be a Texan. I know that.
Yeah. When you guys called me and asked me if I wanted to do this, I said, man, this is going to be a special interview with Billionaire Connie. It's something I can't screw up. And I've given a few Reader's Digest versions of the story, but you have allowed me and led me into some deeper parts of the story that I have not shared, and I appreciate that. But one thing, we're going to plug your little network too that you've been helping me out on. You know, since I'm an unemployed guy, you stepped up and gave me an opportunity with the great comedian Taylor Williamson to do Monday Mailbag. You know, with Taylor, and we extremely enjoy it. I think we put smiles on faces because we tell some of these stories during the course of the Q&As, and then once again, your Stooge Silva gets a little pissed at us because we spend too much time telling stories, not enough time answering the questions. But we get to the questions, but we add a little bit in between the questions there. So tell Silva to back off a little bit.
I'll do it. Check it out. Taylor Williamson, you know him from America's Got Talent, huge wrestling fan and a funny man himself. And he and Briscoe hook up every other week over at adfreeshows.com and do Monday Mailbag, where you get to pick Jerry's brain and ask him anything you'd like. That happens over at adfreeshows.com. And right now, man, I just want to thank you for the time. This was outstanding, and I look forward to hearing more from you real soon. Thanks for the time today.
Real soon, Conrad. And thanks so much for allowing me to get it. You can't believe it. It's always a relief to kind of tell this story, just to take a little bit more of that weight from you, because it's just something that, honestly, I've carried with me, you know, since 25 years, you're saying? Wow. And, and, you know, each time I say it, it's a little bit lighter burden that I'm carrying there. But, you know, as you asked, I do it all over again because I love this business. I love the wrestling business, the professional wrestling sports entertainment business. And the only way for it to grow and survive is to get these stories out there and let people know, you know, that, man, it all don't go according to script, you know. So keep watching and tune in to Conrad Billionaire Connie's Empire, and you'll be entertained. He's got a who's who guest every day on that thing. So thanks so much for allowing me to share my story.
Thanks for the time, man. Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com. All right, guys, so that's going to do it. We greatly appreciate you taking this ride with us today. Who would have thought we could have gotten 3 hours out of a Montreal episode? But here we are, right? Here we are. We really want to thank Briscoe and Bradshaw one more time. Check them out at storiesonyoutube.com. That's storiesonyoutube.com. And of course, they both have a Twitter handle that you should probably follow if you haven't already. John is at JC Layfield. And of course, Mr. Briscoe is at FG Briscoe. That's at FG Briscoe. Their new show, Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw, is so much fun. One more time, check it out, storiesonyoutube.com. And thank you guys for checking out Something to Wrestle. I am sorry that we didn't get to deliver what I hoped would be a very fun episode about Survivor Series 1996. We will be back to talk about that next week. I'm not going to let the opportunity go by without talking about that pay-per-view. Here we are, man, 25th anniversary of that. What an incredible match with Shawn Michaels and Sid, and You get, Bret Hart returning, and he has a barn burner match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, the Undertaker comes back, but down from the ceiling with a totally new look. Oh, and the debut of The Rock. It is such an important show in my fandom that I can't wait to talk to Bruce about it next week here on the program. And hey, as a heads up, Bruce is okay. He had some stuff going on this week, but we will be back in the saddle next week. But boy, what an audible. Thanks again to Jerry Briscoe and, of course, Mike Kiota. Check them out at adfreeshows.com or storiesonyoutube.com. And we'll see you next week right here talking about Survivor Series 96 on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.